shall be going live very shortly.
I just got to
Ah.
press email. I got to sign up to go to this deep show.
Hey, everybody, you are watching and listening to the We Are Rising podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin, and I am joined by a very special guest today. With us, we got Charles Jewett, who will be talking of Rising 28 Tokyo Dome show finally happening. As far as we know, hopefully, nothing happens, and then we have the show delayed for another month or something. But Charles, I just want to thank you so much for doing the show with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Don't even joke about them delaying it. It's already too late. It's already too late for them to delay it.
I would knock on wood, but I literally have no wood around me, so I'll just cross my fingers. Before we go into the show, this is your first time. We always like to know, guests when they're first time on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this crazy world of MMA slash JMMA?
Okay, so my name's Charlie. I'm originally from the United States, but I've lived in and out of Japan on and off for the past 10 years and got really into MMA on the local scene over here and just kind of grew from there.
So how does it feel being a foreigner in Japan? What's the experience like?
I'm actually pretty boring, so it's pretty fun. I spend most of my time with my wife and my dog, but I am probably the only foreigner at most of the small shows that I go to, so I kind of stick out. But that's probably about it.
Oh, do you get people that I guess when you first started, I guess everybody might know who you are now, but when you first started, were people just like, an American here at a Deep Jewel show at Shinjuku Face? What are you doing here?
Um, I wouldn't say that they asked why I was there, but they definitely. I got like some things where people thought I was more important than I was, or I got things where like people thought that I was maybe like press or something in the beginning back when I was just a fan, and people started recognizing me quite quickly because I stuck out. So if you go to enough events in a row, they start realizing that you're always at the events. So they kind of wave at you and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's cool. Um, and so actually, I also want to ask as well, since you've been, covering JMA, especially since beginning of last year till now, we've seen just like the ebbs and flows, ups and downs that's been going on. Shows being canceled, fights being canceled, foreigners basically being soft banned from coming in to fight. What's been what's been like the MMA world been like from the way you've been covering, like how is it doing with just like adapting to corona, especially now because Japan's doing a, is doing a lot worse than it was before.
Yeah. So they can't, like the US, they cancel a bunch of events initially, and then they started doing events like with COVID restrictions. So it was like 50% capacity, and they do like temperature checks. And then I think at some of the bigger rising shows, you had to like fill out an online form with your address and phone number and contact information. So if there was like a hot spot outbreak, they could figure out everybody that was at the event and try to like contain any infection outbreak. And I think the biggest impact so far is probably ticket sales because they've had to limit the numbers of people to come in. And a lot of the smaller promotions rely heavily on ticket sales for their income. And the other biggest impact is a lot of the promotions depend on foreign fighters because they don't have a big enough roster of fighters to keep monthly events going and just have their own people keep fighting each other. They need to bring in outside talent. That's especially notable, like in Rising's super atomweight division for the women. They kind of rely a lot on bringing foreign fighters in. Same with their heavyweight division for like Sidario and people like that. And so, like, not being able to bring in foreign fighters has really impacted those divisions. And it's probably why we saw Hamasaki fight Asakura again and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And would you say? I mean, we've seen Rise and obviously how it's affected them.
Mm-hmm.
How has it affected smaller promotions like Deep Jewels, Pancras, Deep? Has it taken a toll on them financially? Any?
Well, without opening their accounting books, I wouldn't know exactly, but I'd say it has to have affected them financially because, I mean, Shinjuku Face, Tokyo Dome, City Hall, and the P Arena they're going to, those aren't large venues. And so when you have to then cut the ticket sales down to 50%, you're losing half of your revenue. And it's not like Deep Jewels is making a ton of money on broadcasting rights. They make almost all of their money on ticket sales and sponsorships. And I mean, a 50%, some of the promotions raise their ticket prices to try to compensate for it.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still not going to be the same. So, but Deep Jewels has been doing events quite regularly, and they seem to be doing well. And they have an exciting tournament going on. Pancrase, I just got back. I went to Pancrase 321, and I mean, even though it was 50% capacity, it looked very full. And I mean, I imagine as soon as the lockdown, the restrictions cool down a little bit, I mean, Pancrase will be back hopping again. I mean, Sakai is a very smart businessman, so I think he knows what he's doing. And they look like they still had a very high production value. They had a bunch of cameras on cranes and things. So I think Pancrase, Deep Jewels are doing fine. Rising was the one that probably had the big scare. They had to do the crowdfunding campaign, and they had to do stuff like that because they had to keep canceling events, which gets expensive, especially when you rely on TV broadcasting rights for your money. But I think because of that, I think there's actually a good thing that came of that, is that now Sakakibara doesn't want to be solely dependent upon Fuji TV for money. And so they've been exploring, it looks like they've been exploring a lot of other avenues to make money. So hence, now they're streaming pay-per-views themselves to the international audience. Now they're creating a lot of YouTube content. They're also, I think, starting a TikTok page they just announced. And then we get these videos of Sakakibara's meeting with Steve Aoki, talking about branching into doing some entertainment stuff, and then Incredible. So I think he's trying to explore other avenues to get money flowing in.
Saw the TikTok annouement during the press conference, and I was just, I was just like, I don't know what to think about that. I guess that's if you get someone like Kai or Mikaru, one who's established social media presence on TikTok for your thing. I guess that does happen. I don't know how big TikTok is in Japan.
My theory on that would be that Kana Asakura and Koji Horiguchi are actually sponsored by TikTok.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Okay, and they actually had TikTok logos on there, I think, in the last couple of fights. And so I bet it went through them. I bet because they're being sponsored by TikTok, TikTok is kind of... So the way that I imagine it happened is TikTok approached Rizin and said they want to sponsor some fighters. And then they went through Rizin to get Kana Asakura and Koji Horiguchi. And now TikTok kind of wants to... Obviously, they're getting good results from Kana and Koji, so they want to up their sponsorship. So now they're probably sponsoring Rising as a whole. So Rising starting a TikTok page as part of that. That's my theory on what's happening.
Okay. Hey, listen, if the branch out and get the attention of the kids, I don't blame them. Listen, I don't blame them. Rising. But before we go into the Rising 28 show, I just want to also say that unfortunately my partner Jay Christian Gary couldn't be here. He we'll get him on hopefully for the review show.
Perfect.
But yeah, he sent me his predictions in for the 28 show, so I'll be reading those. Yeah, Tokyo Dome, Rizin finally getting a Tokyo Dome show, MMA returning to the Tokyo Dome show. I wish it could be under better circumstances because it feels like it's been this show has been like a roller coaster ride of emotions, especially starting with the K1 show where Takeru and Tenshin had the little stare down, and it seemed like, if they're announcing a Tokyo Dome show, this is what they got to be. And it turned out, that's what it was going to be. Takeru unfortunately got injured. I think there was also some other issues that happened as well. I don't know if you've ever dealt with K1 before, but I could tell you my dealings with them. Their people are more or less very hard people to work with. So I wouldn't be surprised if something changed like an hour after their little stare down. We're getting Tenshin on the card in a unique match, I'll say, or matches. Charles, just tell me the importance of having this show at the Tokyo Dome. It is,
it's huge.
That's
absolutely huge. I mean, they haven't had, I think the last event to be at the Tokyo Dome was Pride.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's been close to 20 years since they've had an MMA event at the Tokyo Dome. And Tokyo Dome's got to be the biggest stadium in Japan, if not one of them. And just the symbolism of doing an event there is a very big deal because, I mean, they have giant wrestling shows there and things. So just by associating Tokyo Dome with your event, it kind of creates this branding that, oh, they're a big deal. They're doing the biggest, most famous stadium.
And so what is it? They're doing 5,000, I think. Not is that the number? Because I'm hearing different numbers. First I heard
No,
10,000, but I think it's
no,
maybe smaller.
the numbers are always changing. I know Sakakibara said he was hoping for 10,000, but I think they only sold 5,000, and I don't think they've sold any more ever since. They sold like tickets a long time ago, like several months ago, and then the restrictions happened, so they stopped selling completely.
Yeah.
And so I think they're at 5,000, but I think because the chronoset changes so quickly, I think they're hoping to get 10,000 in.
So so basically, so right now they can't sell anymore. It's whoever bought a ticket, they can come in, and that's all it can be for now.
I don't think they've started selling tickets again now. I think they did a pre-sale for the fan club before everything got moved around, and they haven't sold tickets since.
I'm actually surprised that they weren't that it was almost not restricted to the fan club. I'm actually surprised that it didn't go that route. I figured that
the restrictions happened. The restrictions happened after that.
Okay, gotcha.
It's been like a weird up and down kind of process. So it was kind of down in a valley when they were trying to sell everything, and then it kind of peaked again in early May. And so then they were everything got locked down pretty quickly.
I'll say this though, they managed to get Tokyo Dome at actually a really good opportunity, because I think Tokyo Dome, I think starting next month. Well, I mean, I think it's going to be probably used for the Olympics, but then after that, I think it's being used as a vaccine hub, I believe.
Yeah, they're actually going to use it for vaccinations, but I mean, it looks like they're going to force the Olympics to happen, so it's probably going to be used for that as well. So they kind of had to do it now. There's no option to push it back farther.
Actually, I'm curious to know. So we saw in America when UFC started running shows, there were people that were against it. Obviously, there's people against the Olympics happening. Was there any big voices that were against MMA shows running at any point?
The only criticism I remember wasn't MMA. It was K1. Back when K1 did a show, probably at the very beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
People were kind of upset, and they thought it might, but no cases were linked to it, so it kind of died down. But I would say since they've been doing shows and there really hasn't been an outbreak related to it, I haven't heard any negative comments about it, especially since they seem to be doing a lot with precautionary stuff for the coronavirus. So for like Rizin, you have to fill out the form, like I said. So in case it's an outbreak, they can quarantine everybody, and they do the temperature checks, and there's a lot of social distancing. I mean, this place is huge, but last time I went to a Rizin show, every seat around me was empty. So they're really social distancing even once you get in as well.
I know they do this for pro wrestling shows, and I don't know if I've seen this in the rules or for the audience for Rizin, but do they encourage the audience not to cheer?
Yeah, so I have a funny story about that actually. I was at Deep 100, which was I think their 20th anniversary show, and this guy kept cheering, and you weren't supposed to cheer. And there was like a security guard that came over and was like sitting next to him. And every time he would start to cheer, the security guard would be like, "Stop cheering." But the security guard would like politely tell him to be quiet. And the guy would like sit back down. So they had to like station somebody next to this guy to keep him quiet. But yeah, they tell you not to cheer, just to clap essentially is the only kind of applause that you're supposed to give.
That's so funny. That's so fun. Because I've heard cheering at Rizin shows. So I don't know if it's that they just don't care about the rules, or is that they're cheering at like more important moments. But I definitely that's a big thing in pro wrestling now, is that they're telling audience not to cheer, not to cheer, not to cheer, and it does seem to kind of spill over in some of the MMA shows. But like Pancreas, I think I heard people cheering during like some parts of that show. I don't know. Do you recall? Maybe not as much as it probably would have been.
I mean, Japanese crowds are pretty quiet compared to American crowds anyway. But I think that sometimes people make noise when something like important or big happens, but there's not really a lot of like screaming going on. But I mean, you hear that at Rizin shows every once in a while, but I think they're like trying to tell people to control themselves, but obviously people lose themselves, and sometimes people scream or can't control themselves.
So let's go into this Ryzen 28 card. And on the surface, what are your thoughts on this card on paper?
Awesome. It's a great card. It's fully stacked. I'm going with a group of ladies. One of them, when she saw the card, said she wanted to cry, that she couldn't believe how good it was. I mean, it's a very good card. It looks like they're really relying on Koji to sell the Osaka card, which is smart because Koji can sell all the tickets for the Osaka card. And they put all of the heavy hitters on the Tokyo Dome card. I mean, I feel like they're pulling out all the stops to make this event special, despite the fact that they keep getting hamstrung by Corona restrictions and things like that. They have the special commentator coming in. They have kind of the Tenshin fight going on. They had new Round Girl auditions. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that happens to try to make it special.
Yeah, so actually, and speaking of, it was just announced very recent, I think as of today, that Damian Brown will be one half of English commentary of Joe Ferraro.
Yeah.
So we got Damian Brown. All I can say is, Damian, please have a good internet connection. Please.
Yes, please.
Please, for God's sakes. That's all. That's the bare minimum.
The English commentary bar isn't very high, but please go over it.
Yes, please don't do a case or trigger. Like, just I don't care. We'll even go fund a proper audio thing if we have to for you, Damien. Who's the special commentator for the Japanese commentary?
Forget the name. It's a lady. I believe she's a voice actor. I think she's somehow related to Pokemon.
Okay.
And she'll be a ring announcer.
Okay.
I don't know if she's doing commentary. I think she's doing ring announcing, actually. That's my mistake. But her name escapes me at the second. But she's famous. And all of this is geared towards getting a lot of attention. So I think there's gonna be a lot of famous people involved.
Oh yes, yes. And sorry, go ahead.
Which will probably go into who Tenshin's next opponent, who the secret opponent is.
And of course, it'll be at the Tokyo Dome. This is important, and also we'll have Lenny Hart, doing her thing. So it's on paper, like you said. I think it's a stacked card. They really put a lot of the heavy hitters on here, and for the Osaka show, they put the Osaka heavy hitters for that show. So it seems like they definitely try to balance out the cards for like enough star power that will have some great fights. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to going over this card with you, Charles.
Let's do it, yeah.
So the first fight, we have Satoshi Dominator Yamasu taking on kickboxer, one of my favorite kickboxers, actually, a champion in Rise, Black Panther Beinoa. Now, when we talked to Beinoa previously for a fight that he had a number of months ago, and he said that he was interested in doing MMA before. I did not know it was going to be this soon and against this high level of an opponent in Dominator. So, usually what I don't know how I don't have much to say about this. Charles, give us your thoughts on this match.
Well, first, I've actually been to a couple of Rise shows as well where Beinoa's fought, and I think he expressed interests with fighting for Rising several times in his post-fight victory speeches. And before I get into the fight, I'll say Beinoa's hilarious. Like, he speaks really good Japanese. The crowd thinks he's hilarious. He's really good at making them laugh. And he gets he's very charismatic, gets a lot of reaction from a normally pretty quiet Japanese crowd. So that's a very good thing. And this is like the craziest matchmaking to me because he's making his MMA pro debut against a guy with a very good grappling submission game who's got, how many fights does Satoshi have? He's got to have like close to 20 fights, right?
He's 11-6. So that is, I'm bad with math.
11-6 or 17.
Yeah,
17 fights. And
also former champion for Deep as well.
So, I mean, it's got to go down. Like, Beinoa could knock him out, but is Satoshi going to give him the chance to do that?
I think the Rizin comes out with those little tales of tapes on their social media, and they were saying that the
data.
Yeah, that the big difference is the size difference between Beinoa and Dominator. Beinoa being much bigger who fight. I think Beno. I think he fights at 170
Yeah,
around that, and
he's a welterweight. Yeah,
Dominator is a 145er. I mean, I don't know how much that size difference is going to actually make in an MMA fight, given that that is Dominator's background.
yeah. But I mean, the fight starts standing though, and if he's got a big size advantage and he hits him, it could be an early night for him. But if it goes to the ground, he's going to be in a lot of trouble.
I mean, also here's the other things we got to take into account is difference between MMA gloves and boxing gloves, which Benoa. I don't know how many years or how many months I should say he's been using MMA gloves
or days, weeks.
Like, yeah. He does have that karate background, so if he can use that to keep Dominator maybe away, that can possibly be maybe be his best advantage, and perhaps use his speed and size to maybe knock out Dominator. But that is a taller, fights start on the feet, but then this could go quickly to the ground before we even know it. And if I think that's Dominator's that's what he wants to do or he should do.
I mean, you'd think that Satoshi is going to try to get him down as quick as possible. I mean, even if you can't finish the fight on the ground, just put it in Benoa's mind to make him hesitant with his strikes. So, I mean, I feel like in my mind, Benoa wants to fight for Rising, and this is his way to get the foot in the door. And then he's thinking after this, maybe he can do kickboxing matches for them.
Oh, and also this feels like we need one more fight on the card. This feels like one of those we need one more fight in the card. We need one more fight. What can we do? What can we do? I don't know if Dominator had an opponent initially, or maybe even Benoa had an opponent initially, and I don't know, maybe something didn't work out. So we have two guys who don't have a fight. Let's just put them together.
Yeah.
Void classes be damned. But I don't see this fight honestly lasting long. I think Dominator wins this first round submission. What do you think, Charles?
That's got to be the betting man's choice. Is that? I mean, it's a fight. Anything could happen, but Dominator would be my pick.
My partner, Jay Christian Gary, he says that Yamasu over Benoa via late round submission or decision. I know we have some Benoa fans that listen to us, and I know that he's a lone American on the card, but he's probably going to be happy to be there, then go back to kickboxing. Best he can do is eke out a decision, but against an experienced opponent like Satoshi, I doubt it. And yeah, that's kind of how it is. It's I don't think it does necessarily that the decision is the only way that can happen. It can't. A knockout can happen. That can.
I don't think. I'll disagree a little bit. I don't think Benoa can win a decision. I think Benoa has to either knock him out, or he's just going to get kind of pushed grappled essentially and lose.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, and especially because he said he wants to fight in Rizin. I don't think he's going to want to put on a boring match.
No.
I hope that he comes out of a grand entrance like he always does. I hope we get the Benoa dance team, or whatever he calls them. But
it comes out those two little kids, right?
Yes, I think they're people from his gym. Maybe I don't think they're his kids.
I don't think they're his kids, but he comes out two little kids, so it's kind of fun.
I think they must be from his gym or something. Especially because I feel like Rizin has been bereft of really grand entrances. Yeah. This could be the grand entrance of 2021 if he's able to do it, and especially at the Tokyo Dome. So I hope it works out. Anything last minute things you want to say about this fight? I really don't know. I don't think this fight's gonna last long. Honestly, I think it's gonna be 1 minute, and then I think it's gonna be less than 1 minute in the first round.
I'd say it's just side note. I mean, it's two champions from two companies that Rising works with a lot, and you got Deep and you got Rise involved. So it just seems like I'm sure that Deep and Rise were kind of like, hey, we want you to put these guys on this card too, if you're going to put all of our other fighters on the card as well.
Let's see. We just got a comment in the chat from our buddy Daniel Dzvecki, and he says that it won't last too much time. It's like a Minowa versus Zimmerman, or even a Hagiwara versus Hiramoto.
The Minowa versus Zimmerman fight was awesome, but yeah, I mean, that's got to be the strategy on how he's going to win this. He's just going to do whatever it takes to get it down and end it as quick as possible.
Was that the fight that he broke the guy's leg? Minowa man?
I don't believe so. I think he just kind of took him down and submitted him.
Okay.
Zimmerman came out dressed up like a skeleton. Is what I remember of it.
And he also Daniel says if Bainova KOs Yamasu, it will mean that Kyoshin is the best base for MMA. Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of that karate style, but
Sure, George St. Pierre will agree with you.
oh yes, yes. But now the next fight we definitely have is a big boy matchup. We got Tsuyoshi Sudario taking on Shoma Shibisai, heavyweight matchup. Probably the highest level opponent that Sudario is facing in his undefeated MMA career. Both fighters have never gone to a decision when it comes to a win. Charles, what do you think about this
Well,
matchup?
I agree with you. I mean, Sudario realistically has only ever faced like one somewhat legitimate opponent in his very first fight with a pro wrestler, because everyone else was just kind of so old. And the other guy was, yeah, but Sudario is very athletic, he's very big, and he hits very hard. And Shu and I actually kind of predicted this would be his opponent because with the travel ban kind of in place, the inability to bring in foreign fighters, this is the only other foreign heavyweight, and the other Japanese heavyweight that's really around, besides Sekine, who's actually wanted this fight, but Shoma already has a history with Rizin, so it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's hard to predict who's going to win because they're both kind of so raw still. And it's a heavyweight fight, so if someone gets a clean hit, it's going to be over.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, it's funny that I'm kind of glad that the Shrek fight didn't happen because that would just mean that he has to face another pro wrestler, and it was kind of getting it was almost getting to the point of like a gimmick that Sudario was becoming the pro wrestler killer.
I think that was the angle that Shrek was actually leaning into. He wanted to like show that quote unquote pro wrestling is strong, like kind of like Sakuraba style. But
Yeah.
I think Shrek's kind of getting up there in his years and experience.
Yeah.
I think Shoma looks like a more legitimate opponent. Plus, he's got a decent record, and he's got some submissions. So he seems like a more well-rounded fighter that Sudario's fought. Besides, Minowa's so old at this point, but I think it'll tell us a lot about Sudario. Like if he just dominates this guy, it's like, yeah, start bringing in the foreign heavyweights for him. This guy's the real deal. But if he struggles a little bit, maybe you build him up a little bit more, and then you bring in the foreign heavyweights.
I definitely feel that, and we talked to Sudario 2 days ago, and the interview will be released probably either later today or tomorrow. But yeah, I definitely feel like that this is the fight that is going to be the one. Yeah, that we'll see how he truly is as an MMA fighter and how he's developed since starting out last year against Dylan James. And, you know, I don't know if you saw, he trained at Extreme Couture in Las Vegas, did that. So he's clearly taking it very seriously. He's taking to train. If he's coming all the way to America, you know, and then having, you know, come back to Japan, quarantine for 14 days. He's like, you know what, I'll do that. I'll do that if I have to. And so he's definitely taking this game seriously. Shibisai, I think just by proxy is the highest level opponent. I agree he's raw, but he's just by proxy like what Rizin can deal with. I guess maybe the only other one would be Ryo Sakai, the deep is he heavyweight? Is he heavyweight champion or
you mean the Megaton guy?
Megaton, yeah, Megaton. That's maybe the only other person, but even then, I think Sudario has a bigger chance of winning this. Shibisai at least has a little bit of a grappling background. He submitted guys, so we at least know that, like, okay, it's not just being knocked out to Sudario has to worry about. He has to worry about being taken to the ground and possibly submitted.
Plus, I mean, Rising fans will be aware of him because he fought Shemetov and submitted him, so he's already got kind of like a Rising presence, and he doesn't have a pro wrestling background. He comes across as a legitimate fighter, and that's what Sudario wants. And so, I mean, realistically, like this is his first legitimate MMA fight, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think it'll tell us a lot.
Yeah. Just curious to know, what do you think of that whole ruckus that happened after his previous fight with Miyamoto?
I thought it was kind of weird. I mean, the whole fight was weird. I mean, I know that the guy was like mouthing off to him before the fight. I mean, the guy like ran at him before the bell started, but I understand he's like a young guy, but it was on like live TV, and it was aired a lot. It got a lot of Google searches, and a lot of casual fans were just really turned off by it. And
Mm-hmm.
he already has a history, which it combines with. So I thought it was unfortunate because people are just going to relate it to the bullying incidents in sumo. And so it's just going to tarnish his name a little bit, which he doesn't need. And I think he was just a young guy that kind of got a little too into it. But hopefully he learns from it. And I think he'll do better in his next fight. I don't think he'll make the same mistake again.
He did. To give to his credit, at the press conference when this fight was announced, he did say that he was, I guess, regretful of his behavior and that he wants to kind of make up for it with this fight. I think he said something
Yeah.
along those lines. So yeah, at least he seems to be on the right path.
Yeah.
And also we can't forget the having Ensign anyway in his corner.
Yeah.
That'll definitely be Ensign. Unfortunately, it just seems like anyways he's been involved in two altercations in the ring during his career. So I don't know this.
Yeah. I remember one the kicking and the what was that where his brother ran and kicked Frank Shamrock in the face.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just seems like if you're with anyway, trouble seems to follow you in the MMA ring.
Doesn't back down.
Well, so do you think this fight will go beyond the first round?
No. Wait. First round. It could. His first fight with what's the guy's name? Jake Dillon.
Dylan James.
Dylan James. I'm sorry. The New Zealand Australian pro wrestler that went past the first round. I think he actually quit between the rounds.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I could see it getting stuck in a weird position where like they're grappling and not able to hit each other, so it goes to the second round. But I could also see it ending immediately. I mean, they both hit really hard. It's a heavyweight fight, but I have no idea. It's hard to predict for me because this is the first real legitimate opponent.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
I think we always have the issue of heavyweight fights is that I always hope for a first round knockout because just by the numbers and previous fights that have happened that go beyond the first round, they become like an entire slog. Like after the first round.
The infamous UFC card that was in Denver where they had all the heavyweight fights that were just awful because they all got exhausted.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if we've seen. Shibisai has gone beyond the first round, and he doesn't seem to get tired. Sudario, he's lost a lot of weight, since his sumo days. I'm presuming that he's going to not get tired as well. So I'm presuming that it won't become a UFC Denver fight if it goes beyond the first round.
They also aren't like the type of heavyweights that normally look. I mean, they aren't like two giant fat guys that are kind of fighting each other in the ring. They seem to when Sudario was training at Extreme Couture, he actually kind of looked like a smaller heavyweight. The guy that he was with looked absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Was it Walt Harris?
I think, it was Walt Harris. Walt Harris, yeah.
I mean, the guy looked huge next to him. So, I mean, he's not like one of the heavyweights cutting down to 265. So I don't think stamina will be an issue in this fight.
It all comes down to how I think the grappling that's the main question is that if Sudario can negate it, if he can defend against it, I think that he's my pick to win this. I don't know. I think probably by a knockout or even decision. It would. If he manages to finish Shibisai, I think then it's fair to say that he is Japan's next, next big heavyweight that you should pay attention to.
He's already a big deal. The heavyweight division just doesn't really exist here, though. So if he wins this, or even if he doesn't, they're going to start bringing in higher and higher foreign talent for him to fight. Maybe eventually have some guys from Bellator come over or send him over to Bellator. But I just don't think they have like the division right now to continually give him high caliber fights unless they start bringing people in.
Well, that's the thing is that if he beats Sudario, if Sudario beats Shibisai, every other Japanese heavyweight that they put against him would be like a step below. This is maybe it's like Shrek. I think it's a step below. Again, Sakai might be the only one that's maybe you can make a case for, but then there's nobody else. There's really I can't think of anybody else that you would put up against him. And listen, if he beat Shibisai, Sakakibara said, hey, he'd be hiring Overeem again. Why not? Why not try? Let's see. Go take a put Sidario like in deep waters. Let's see how he does against a fighter
Well,
like Overeem.
well, I mean, he'll be able to find heavyweights to bring over. I mean, as soon as the restrictions lift, he'll be able to bring heavyweights over for him.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. And my partner Jay Christian Gary says that he's picking Sidario over Shibisai versus or second round knockout. I know that Ensign has said he's training Tsuyoshi for when he goes distance, but I doubt the judges will be needed. I said that it's going to be two big slabs of meat wrecking shop and body rocking on one another, but I do see Sidario getting the W. Yeah, I have to pick Sidario getting the knockout
Yeah.
win. Is it? You said that you're kind of on the fence. You really don't have a.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, Sidario has so much raw athletic ability
Mm-hmm.
that he hits so hard that I would think he wants to win. And I think that Rising wants him to win.
Yes.
So based off of that, I would pick him. But it's just hard to make a confident prediction based off of the results so far.
No, I get.
That's not to blame him. It's nothing he's done. It's just the fact that the opponents he's been given are hard to measure with.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. I think Ryzen definitely wants Sudario to win. I think there are times where you can kind of figure out, oh yeah, Ryzen wants they want this bloke to win, and I think this is definitely a case of that. Uh, we'll be moving on to the next match, a much lighter match. A non-title match actually between the Ryzen featherweight champion Yutaka Saito taking on returning one half of the Azerbaijani collective, Fugar Karamov. And what do you think about this fight, Charles?
Karamov's a stud, and he hasn't lost in forever. I mean, I don't think he's lost since 2014 or 2015. He's been on a big win streak, and he's going to have that solid wrestling base like Musayev. And I don't know if Saito has faced someone of his level yet.
What about the fact that both of the Azerbaijani fighters, and we'll be talking about Tofik later, have not done anything in terms of like, I guess, official in ring or in the cage fightings for a number of for so long? Do you think? Do you believe ring rust or cage rust exists?
Um, I'd say as a rule, as a general rule, it exists. Certain people have shown that it doesn't apply to them, but I think they're more of the exceptions that prove the rule. Now, I think the difference is they've been less active. I would say if you're going to fight them, now is the perfect time to fight them. Same with Musayev. Satoshi's been active, Musayev hasn't. So it's kind of the perfect time for that. But they've been wrestling for so long that I think that the wrestling aspect of their game is almost second nature. And so that part of their game, I don't think will have decayed any. Maybe tying it together, maybe performing in the ring, maybe doing an actual MMA fight, they'll be a little rusty, but I think the wrestling will still be solid.
Also, the other thing is that I think actually their quarantine ended yesterday, both Tofik's and Vugar's. What about just having to go to Japan for 2 weeks? I think it's still 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. You have to stay in a hotel. You cannot leave the hotel. I think they only allow. I don't think I think you have to be sequestered by yourself in the hotel. I think.
I don't know the exact details because it's kind of different, I think, for nationals and non-nationals. But I imagine they had to stay in a hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, at least from what I've heard from non-nationals when they've had to go, like as soon as you get out of the airport, you get tested. They ask you questions, and then you have to immediately go into a vehicle towards wherever you have to go. You're like wearing a mask, and I think face shield.
Kana Watanabe was allowed to quarantine at her home.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously don't have that option because they don't have a house, so
yeah,
they probably had to go to a hotel room.
Yeah, no. So they're in a hotel room the entire time. I don't know if they're how much contact they have with their coaches, if any. But if they're doing like Zoom coaching, obviously I don't know if that's as good as that's obviously not as good as in-person coaching. So I mean, do you think that this quarantine might have an effect on Karamov and maybe even later when we talk about Tofik's performances in the ring?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to have an effect. I just don't know if it's going to be a big enough effect to alter the outcome of the fight. I mean, the war that they were involved with, even though it kind of seems to have de-escalated,
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a giant distraction for them. So they've had lots of distractions. They may not be as concentrated, but I mean, this doesn't change the fact that they're both world-class athletes, and they're still going to be, they still have years of experience. So I think their basic skills will still be very good. It's like what they've been doing for years, the wrestling, I think will still be very strong. And I think in Japan, at least in general, unless you're one of like the people that comes from an Olympic wrestling background, I think that one of the MMA gym's weaknesses in Japan is wrestling when it comes to foreign athletes. And so I think that they'll have a big advantage with their wrestling.
So I also want to ask, what do you think about these non-title matches that Rizin puts on?
Well, it's just not Rising. Japan does it a lot.
Yeah, I should have picked on Rizin. I know Deep does it, Pancreas does it. But yeah, what do you think about these non-title matches where they're asking your champion, hey, we don't want you to defend the title, but we want to have you on the card, fight.
I actually spoke about this recently. I would say it's one of those things. I think they do it more with foreign fighters, especially when they're bringing in a foreign fighter. And I'm assuming they don't have them on like a long-term contract. So they don't want that person to defeat the champion and then just leave for another promotion. Because Vugar, isn't he with Bellator?
I think he may have fought in Bellator at some point.
Okay. I don't know if he has a long contract with him, but I think his last fight was with Bellator. Let me check. I apologize. I should have.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Oh no, never mind. 2 fights ago, he fought for Bellator. So I don't know if he has a contract with Bellator, if it's just like a one-off kind of thing. But my theory with those is that they're usually wanting the champion to win those, and they're bringing someone in. But in case that person wins, they don't have the contract in place. They don't want that person to take the title and kind of run with it.
Of course.
And so, I mean, the one that comes to mind, obviously, like the famous one is Ham Sohi's pro debut fight was a non-title match against Hisei Watanabe, and then she won. So it kind of threw a wrench in everybody's plans.
Yeah, or if you, I mean, the most recent example I can think of is Kai versus Kyoji. And I mean, it worked. That worked out like in a weird fourth dimensional way in the end. But
didn't Mikuru even say that if Saito loses this, he thinks he should relinquish the belt?
Oh yeah. Mikuru was still salty after that loss.
It was a close fight. It was a close fight.
Oh yes, it was. It absolutely was an exciting fight as well. But yeah, the reason I've been against it because I think it puts miles on the fighters. You risk again. So Fugar defeats Saito. I mean, obviously I think they're gonna pick whoever Mikuru versus Kleber as the next challenger. But then like you have Vugar who says, "Hey, listen, I just beat your champion.
Yeah,
what's the deal?"
I think it cheapens the title.
Yeah,
if you have a champion that just lost, makes the championship meaningless.
I think
so. It's like you don't have linear champions anymore. It's like, well, he has the belt, but he lost his last fight. But then he fought someone else. I think I agree with you, but I think they do it for contract reasons.
And I think that's actually happened to Saito as well when he was the Shuto featherweight champion. I think he actually lost one fight in a non-title match, if I remember correctly, for one of the Shuto shows. And it may have been against even a foreigner, if I remember correctly.
No, yeah, that can happen.
Let me see. Wasn't Mike Grundy, but I'm pretty sure I remember that. I remember them promoting a fight with him when he was champion, and then he lost it. So I mean, you're risking that. You're risking that, and I'm someone who believes winners should get title shots, especially if you're defeating your champion. So if Vugar does defeat Saito, he absolutely should. Keep him an extra extend his visa if you can, Rizin. But what? So are you picking Karamov to beat Saito in this match? Do you think he's just gonna overwhelm Saito with just like all of his tools, all of his wrestling, all of his striking?
I'm gonna pick Karamov to win. Yeah, I mean, he's on an insane win streak, and I thought Saito. I just don't know if he's ready for that type of grappling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting fact about the two of them. All their both have never been finished in an MMA fight.
It's
Do you?
crazy stat, right?
I do you foresee Saito being finished by Karamov for the first time?
I don't think so. I think it'll be a decision win. But I mean, Vugar when he beat Kyle Aguan, I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of a telling match because Kyle's very good
Yeah.
and he's a very hard fighter to beat, especially in kind of like a long fight. I think it was. I think Satoshi kind of hit him with a weird punch and rocked him, and that's what allowed him to submit him.
Mm.
But or is that Clover Koke?
Yeah, clever.
I'm sorry, it's Clever. Clever like hit him with a weird overhand kind of looping punch and then submitted him, but he was already kind of essentially knocked out before that happened.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's kind of a freak punch thing that happened, but he's a very difficult fighter to beat. And Vugar's on this insane, like multiple, like almost like 6 to 7 year long win streak. I think he's going to be tough to beat, even with all of the factors against him.
In that case, what do you think Saito's? What does he need to do to beat Vugar?
Take advantage of the fact that he may not have been active recently and push a pace on him and touch him up. And I wouldn't try to avoid getting to the ground like on bottom, but that's like a stupid thing to say because everybody should do that. But I think just try to avoid the wrestling to the best of his ability. But I mean, if he can just either put a pace on him and tire him out and take advantage of, I mean, you got the travel, you have the hotel, you have the lack of training. Those are all going to add up, especially if you make it kind of, I mean, the Mikado fight was a very fast paced fight, especially in the end in the last round. And if he can do that, he has a good chance, I think, of winning.
So I am suspect why Rizin is making this fight, especially with such a high level opponent as Vugar. And I believing that they're booking it because they think that Saito can beat Vugar. I don't know. I'm gonna err like on the side that it's gonna be a split decision for Saito. I think Saito is gonna have all those advantages that you said. I don't know, like especially because this is Vugar's first, I guess, first fight after all this. So I'm not so sure how he's going to be like as soon as
So
he gets.
my theory on why he's on this card is because Musayev probably because there's that weird issue where they didn't know if Musayev was still going to fight for Rizin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the deal to get Musayev to stay with Rizin was to guarantee some fights for his teammates, which wouldn't be unheard of. Fedor did some similar things. If you remember, a lot of the early Rizin cards had a ton of Russian fighters from his team on those events.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my idea would be that one of the ways to get Musayev to stay with Rizin was to promise good fights for some of his teammates. Who better than the guy that's already fought for Rizin?
I initially thought it was because like you usually bring teammates over.
Yeah, smart.
Because remember Miyu, Kyle had a fight, 2 fights on the same card. They tend to do that. Rizin tends to do that where people like 2, 3, 4 people from the same gym tend to be booked on a show.
Yeah.
Japan, foreign. So I that's interesting. That's interesting. I would not be surprised if something like that happened.
Well, it's also it's a calculated decision because Sakakibara didn't go into details, but when Rena wasn't able to fight on the card, he made the comment that this isn't like Musayev, where we have been trying to get him a visa for a very long time, that we can't get a foreign fighter because it takes a long time to get the visa.
Yes.
Which tells you that they've also been trying a long time to get Vugar's visa as well. So it makes you think that Musayev and Vugar were always kind of a package deal.
Yes.
And that as long as they've been working on Musayev, they've also been working to get Vugar's visa as well. And you're right. I mean, Pancrase, Deep, they all did the same thing. If they're going to bring over foreign fighters, they bring over like 3 or 4 people from the same gym. And just makes everything easier.
I was going through the deep and Pancrase cards and seeing, oh, this person's from Hearts, this person's from Y and K Academy, this person is from and you usually see them in the corner when they're of their teammates when they're not fighting.
Exactly.
Daniel has a good point. It lowers costs first and foremost, especially now. Oh yeah, well listen, you don't have to pay. You don't have to bring extra cornermen, so it's less people to worry about, less people to bring over. So
I also
Uh,
I can't quite explain it, but Musayev is very popular in Japan.
yes,
Um,
yes. I
he's very
I
popular. So
it is so that is the thing that I like, and we'll talk about more when we get into this fight. But like, I am baffled. Like, I follow him on Instagram and all that stuff, and just the amount of Japanese fans that like are or like re Instagramming or whatever, like Tofik's like past fights and all that stuff, and he's
yeah.
sharing them. And I'm looking and there's maybe like 20, 25 on social media.
Mhm.
There are fans that actually have him as his as
As their
picture.
avatar. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll talk about that when we get to this fight. But yeah, that's something that's really fascinating to me. But I
Mhm.
think I have to pick Saito for this. I think Saito in the Mikuru fight, it was a close fight, but I think that Saito eventually, I think he won it in my eyes. Saito has the ability to weather storms, very
Yeah.
brutal storms. I think that he can. I think he can weather a storm that Vukar can bring. I don't think it'll be easy fight to win. Like I said, I think it might be a split decision.
Mhm.
Uh, but if Vugar wins, absolutely, I would immediately say Mikuru clever. Guys have to wait.
Yeah.
Uh, we have to give Vugar the title shot. But I think this is gonna be an exciting fight. I really don't know how it's gonna go. That's what I'm most
No,
intrigued about. It's
but that's why I like this fight is just because I mean, what I think Vugar's only had one rising fight. Is that correct?
yeah. And
It's
it was
only had yeah, it's only had one rising fight. So I mean, he's still very unknown to the Japanese audience. He's known mainly because of his association with Musayev.
yeah,
All that we know is that he's very good,
yeah.
and Saito's also very good. And so this fight could go anywhere. I mean, I agree with you. I think Saito won his fight with Mikuru. Mikuru kind of didn't come on until the very end of the fight, but I don't think Vugar will fight like Mikuru did. I think it'll be a very different fight,
Mm.
but I think it's hard to predict because they come from such different backgrounds and different opponents. Like, don't really have any common opponents, so it's kind of hard to measure.
I definitely
So
do think.
that makes it exciting for me
Oh yeah,
because anything could happen.
I definitely feel that in that fight, Mikuru was kind of lackadaisical
Yeah.
about Saito, and I'm not gonna say that I'm not that's not taking anything away from Saito. Saito came prepared for that fight, and
Mm-hmm.
he won fair and square. But definitely Mikuru was, I think, or maybe I, maybe he didn't get enough training in because of his he was doing YouTube skits or whatever. But there was definitely that was the least amount of
It's weird, right?
the least Mikuru I've seen in terms of his rise in tenure so
He didn't
far.
look like Mikuru until the very end of the fight.
Oh no, absolutely not, absolutely not. Before we move on, though, I'm gonna read what Christian wrote. He said Saito over Karamov via decision. There's no way that Rising can afford to have another champion get their ass kicked in a non-title fight. If I'm wrong, you could bash me on this. So Charles, remember that if
Oh well.
you can lambast Christian for this if Fugar destroys Saito. Imagine that. Imagine if it's like a one round knockout and like
That'd
I
be awful. I don't want nobody wants that except for Vugar.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely not. But listen, Vugar is that dangerous. He
Yeah.
can do that, or he can make it a tough 3 rounds
Yeah.
for Saito. Uh, but now I'm so excited. We get to go into these selection of matches, and that is
Oh
the
yeah.
first portion of the opening round of the Bantamweight Grand Prix. I'm so excited when they announced all the participants for this match. And, I don't think there's one bad match that they've announced for this or the Osaka show.
Nope.
And we're going to first start off with a very high level matchup between Yuki Motoya and Ryo Okada.
Mm-hmm.
Okada is actually a champion in Shuto, the bantamweight champion. So he's kind
Yes.
of he's got some he's got a little extra baggage. He's got to make Shuto not look good. And also just love also in the bantamweight Grand Prix, like you have like 6 degrees of separation with like all these fighters. Like one
Oh yeah,
fighter
it's
fought this,
ridiculous.
one fight, one fighter fought this fighter like 10 years ago in VTJ. This one is
Exactly.
I love that. I kind of just
I think Ishu Atari probably has fought most of them.
yes,
Like I think he's the one that's fought the most.
yeah, I think so too. I think or Ogi Kuba, who's in the
Yeah.
rematch that we'll
Mm-hmm.
be talking about next. It's funny just like how all these people just have just like a
Yeah.
connection. I really like that. But
But it's
so
kind of fun though because most of those fights were a long time ago. like a lot of them are like back in VTJ, like you're saying, like 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
So they're very different fighters now. It's going to be kind of fun to see what happens now.
Yeah, some have gone up, some have
Yeah.
gone down. But with this first match, Yuki Motoya, Ryo Okada, what do you think about this matchup, Charles?
Motoya got absolutely destroyed by Naoki Inoue,
Yes.
and I mean, he got beat up on the feet, and then he got submitted. I mean, it was really like a standout performance for Naoki.
Yeah.
And if that was the most recent fight, I'd be very questionable about Motoya going into this. But he rebounded very well, and he absolutely destroyed Shoji earlier this year at the Deep 20th anniversary show, and looked very good in it. He looked very motivated. So I think, I mean, I don't know if he took Naoki not seriously or if Naoki's just that good, but I think he's still very dangerous, and I'm going to pick Motoya to win the fight.
Yeah, I don't think he was not taking.
I think Naoki's just that good. Naoki's just that good.
I mean, he basically submitted Shuto the same way. It was really the same way. It was like
oh yeah, he kind of, they went for the takedown. He like kind of took their back and choked him out, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was literally almost, and I think, was it the first round for both of them?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: Motoya is somebody you could count the amount of times he's been finished in a fight. And remember, one of the other times was against Patrick Mix, and then before, was that sorry?
But Patricky's so good.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and then the other time was maybe 10 years ago. Takeshi Kasugai, who we'll be talking about next, was the first person to ever finish in an MMA fight by armbar. So Motoya, you know, I don't know what's I saw the fight that he had in Deep, and it seems like he can beat that level of competition. Do you think miles are catching up to him by any chance at this point, or
well, I mean, that's gonna be a common theme for a lot of fighters in this tournament. Is a lot of them have had kind of long careers, but he looked very good in his last fight. And I think the issue in the Naoki fight was, I think Naoki actually hurt him standing, and he kind of desperately went for that takedown to get the fight to the ground. And that's how it just happened. It was very quick, and Naoki's very good, but I still think he's a very good fighter. I don't think he's kind of hit that decline yet, and that's why I'm picking him to win the fight. I think he'll be able to get it down, and I think he'll probably grapple his way to a decision or maybe get a submission.
What do you think also, and Rizin announces as well, is that all MMA fights will now have elbows. And normally for a tournament, Grand Prix, they would probably not allow elbows, I'm guessing, just because of, what it can, it can easily open up an opponent. Satoshi was always somebody who never wanted elbows in his fights. Yachi as well, Miyu. So what do you think about this? Okay, you know what? Elbows across the board, and we're allowing 12-6 to legal parts of the body. So obviously no needing doing that to the balls or anything. But so what do you think about that they're now doing this?
Well, it seems kind of weird to me. I mean, the thing I like is they said they're now going to put Vaseline on their faces. Which,
oh yeah, that too as well. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be big, because the thing with Japan is they don't have like a medical or athletic commission, and so the ringside doctors are normally like volunteers or like sponsors essentially. And fights, you've probably noticed, like fights in Japan get stopped for cuts that would never get stopped somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
And if they're going to keep doing that, then I don't like the elbows, because it's just going to cause a cut and they're going to stop the fight. Especially if it's on Fuji TV, I think they'll stop the fight if it starts bleeding a lot.
The most egregious case was when Mirko fought Rocky Martinez, and Rocky just got a little teeny cut above the eye, like little teeny. I don't think he was even bleeding. It was just a cut, and then the doctor just like waved it off, and I'm just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah, so they're really inconsistent, which is why I wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
But I think based off of Sakakibara's last video with Dana White, I think he's trying to do a lot to like make Rising unique. And I think the elbows is probably, well, I think he wants to have the elbows because it'll prepare the fighters for when they fight abroad.
Yeah.
and that's part of their marketing angle is when the people kind of graduate and go abroad. But I think he also wants to have all of the elbows because it's also something that makes them unique, and it'll be something that people talk about when they talk about Rising. Plus, the 12-6 rule is kind of stupid. John McCarthy talked about it so many times how it was illegal because of like a karate demonstration with bricks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
I've always the 12-6 rule is something I have no problem doing the body. Listen, if you're gonna elbow somebody in the eye, I think that's kind of like, I think that's like you could. I mean, we saw what happened with John Jones and Matt Hamill. Where like
yeah,
I don't know if Hamill got a broken orbital bone, but I don't
yeah.
know. I think it's kind of fun.
Fractured skull, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's that I can only count the amount of times I've seen that, and it's that and the Cyborg
Mhm.
MVP knockout. So
Oh yeah, the flying knee.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's very rare to see a fractured skull. Even the heaviest of heavyweights. I don't ever hear about fractured
Yeah.
skulls. So listen, I have no problem. Again, no problem 12-6 elbows. I just I would say no to the face just because like what it can like this is the hardest part of your arm.
Yeah.
And yeah, that little sharp thing comes down your eye. Oh boy, like chances are that you lose not even potentially lose an eye, but break anything is like very high. That's just my personal opinion.
My issue with elbows is that I mean I think the reason they're usually illegal is because they cause cuts like
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
especially if you have like little Kenny Florian elbows.
Yeah.
And if they're going to stop fights for cuts very easily, then I don't want them to have more cuts and get these fights. I mean, I've seen kickboxing fights essentially get stopped for nosebleeds.
Yeah.
I've seen fights get stopped for like cuts on the side of the face that aren't going into the eye. And so it's always very nervous to me, especially when it's on Fuji TV, that a fight could get stopped.
So Daniel also has a good point. From the other hand, Vaseline is allowed, so it's a smart move for illegal elbows. So it kind of does go hand in hand. If they're going to allow elbows, the Vaseline at
Oh,
least will maybe mitigate
I was
immediate.
always I've been talking about that a lot recently because if next time you watch a Rising show, watch the cornermen. They aren't putting ice on the eyes. They aren't
Yeah.
using the compressor. They aren't putting Vaseline on. I'm just like, I mean, are there rules against that, or because
Well, remember Charles? Remember Jair's fight when his cornerman did put Vaseline on him,
Mhm.
and then he got the DQ. He got not DQ'd, but he got the yellow card because he
Yeah.
had put. So I think that's gotta be a rule. That's gotta be
Well, I
like
mean, it really stuck out to me in the Kana Asakura fight because her eye was swelling shut.
yeah.
I'm like, where's the
Oh
cold compress? Why is someone
yes.
not putting that swelling down
Where's
in her
Stitch?
corner?
Where's
Yeah,
Stitch putting
exactly.
the metal thing on the eye? Listen, if
Yeah,
I'm gonna,
exactly.
if I'm going anywhere, I'm asking Stitch if you could be my cut man just because of something like that. Yeah. So I don't know if cut men in Japan are just not as advanced in the cut man
I mean,
techniques.
I don't even think they have cut men. Is what I'm getting at. I think it's just
Uh,
if you watch it, the corner is usually just like their coach, and then like a kind of like a kohai, like a secondary guy with like a bucket and a bottle of water.
So yeah, I mean that's what sucks. It's but it'll be interesting to see. If they do this tournament, if they do like the semifinals and finals on like the same day, if they'll still allow elbows, then it would be.
Um,
I think they said they would. I think.
I think that I don't. I mean, if they're saying this now, I don't think they'd make special rules.
hmm
But I just get like flashbacks to the Dream tournament where Eddie Alvarez couldn't go forward because his eye ballooned shut.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it's a rule now. But let's just think about it. These guys aren't training with elbows like that,
Yeah.
and so I think it's going to be a couple of fights or events before you see someone like actually take advantage of the rule
hmm
because that's just not in their instincts right now. It's not like in their muscle memory to throw those elbows.
I also recommend Ryzen if you're going to allow elbows, please have alternates because if you're going to, because you're really, you don't want just in case, I think for the last tournament, I'm trying to remember, I think I'm trying to remember which tournament it was that they had last. Was it the second bandweight tournament? Did they have a tournament after that? I think the first
Oh, in
bandweight.
Rising,
Yeah.
I mean, the most recent tournament I can think of is the Musayev tournament, but have they had one since
Yeah.
then?
Oh yeah. Didn't Musa? Yeah. I think Musayev broke his hands in during the
Well,
or was it
didn't
Pitbull?
Pitbull fell out of the ring and like hurt his shoulder or
Yeah.
collarbone?
Yeah. I think Musayev broke his hand in one of the my fights that he had earlier in
Yeah.
that Grand Prix. But yeah, if you're gonna allow elbows, just have alternates. Just have.
Well, I think
Just
they'll do that. Most Japanese tournaments, what they'll probably do is they'll pick a couple of the losers and have them fight each other in the next events, and they'll be the alternate that steps forward if someone gets injured.
Speaking of loser, Motoya did lose his last fight in Rizin, and actually his last two fights in the Rizin.
Yeah.
And so, were you surprised that he got called for a tournament, even though he did win the fight in deep? Do you think that
No, because I was that deep when he made the call out and Sakakibara was in the crowd and said that he could come in the tournament. So.
Never mind that. Okay. That answers that.
It's kind of funny though, because it was at the event and because Sakakibara was there, everyone that was winning was like calling out to Sakakibara, and he only responded to Motoya, which must make the other fighters just feel like absolute shit that he ignored them.
It's kind of like when the fighters in the UFC say, "Hey Dana, give me that performance bonus." It basically, I've always heard that if you ever say that, you never get the performance bonus.
Well, I mean, it's just you're just copying Conor McGregor, 50 G's, baby. Like, do something original, maybe you'll get the bonus.
Oh God, all those poor fighters, like they're like hoping the back, and then they see the Tokyo Dome card. It's like, oh, I'm not on the card. Oh, what Ryo Okada? Do you think he's a good addition to this tournament?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't think there's a bad fighter in the tournament, especially with his Shuto background.
Yeah,
I like it. I like having kind of the representatives of each promotion. And I mean, what is it? Okada is actually beaten. I mean, we talk about how this is all intertied. I think he's beaten two of the fighters in the tournament. And so, I mean, he's definitely earned a spot in there, and he's a champion, and he's from Shuto. So I think it's good to have him in there.
He's beaten actually Kazuma Kuramoto, the only and his only loss.
He beat Allen as well, right? He beat Allen Yamaniha.
Oh yes, Yamaniha as well.
No, I'm sorry. That's someone else. I'm getting confused. He beat Otsuka.
Okay, gotcha.
I was mistaken.
Again, like we said before, all these fighters have like 6 degrees of separation from one another, so we're gonna probably get some names screwed up. This person defeated that person, but So again, going back to your pick, do you think Motoya can go back to his old ways and submit him on the big stage?
I don't know if he'll submit him, but I think he'll be able to get a decision. I mean, he's got the big stage experience. He seems very motivated. I think the loss to Naoki kind of lit a fire under him.
I hope so.
And he's hitting the gym hard, and he's a popular fighter in Rising. I think Rising wants him to win.
Yeah.
And I think he's still got a couple fights left in him.
Do you think that the stand-up game will be at all a factor in this, or do you think it's just going to be grappling between these two?
I mean, I imagine there'll be some striking, but I think it's no secret that Motoya is going to want to get it to the ground.
Yeah. Well, how do you think you'll submit it? What out of this world submission do you think that Motoya is going to try to try to win this fight with? I don't know, scissors choke again.
That sounds kind of crazy, right? I don't think one of those obscure chokes is going to work on someone like Okada. I think it's going to be like either a rear naked choke is probably what he's going to be going for.
And I'm in total agreement with you.
I mean, I would love to see like a Peruvian necktie or like some crazy leg scissors or a go-go plata, but
a reverse triangle choke, maybe.
Yeah, throw some Toby Yamada.
Oh yes. So yeah, but I'm gonna have to agree with you. I have to go with Motoya. I think Motoya. I did see the deep fight. He looked awesome in that match, and I think he got the submission like right at the very tail end of the first round. I think it was like the last.
Yeah, but I mean, his transitions, his grappling looked very good. Looked very motivated, and I think he's got a fire under him. I think he's going into this with something to prove.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Okada, I think, can more likely knock out Motoya than Motoya knock out Okada. So I think, like you said, Motoya's got to get to the ground and do what he does best, and that's grapple his way to a decision or grapple his way to a submission. And he can get that submission win. Also Okada tries to go for a takedown. Listen, you leave your neck open to Motoya. It's easy fixings for Motoya. Christian is in agreement. He thinks that Motoya over Okada via decision, and I think that Motoya is going to win this. I really do think that we're going to see the new, hopefully a new and not better, but revised Motoya.
I think he's switched his training up recently too. I think he's
Crazy B. He's at Crazy B now. Yeah. Which is funny because I think wasn't he kind of like freelance where like he didn't really have a gym before.
I think he used to train at a gym called Club Barbarian, which was not in Tokyo. It's kind of out, I think, near Nagoya, if I'm correct. But I think it's where Miku Matsumoto, the old deep women's champion, trained.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he was actually training with Kana Watanabe and her coach for briefly. And I think now he's kind of trained. Crazy B's been like rebuilding themselves.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna. I asked Miyu about Crazy B when she had her fight against Hamazaki, and it sounded like Crazy B was gonna be like gone within a month. I thought like, oh god.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think that their old office manager started his own management company.
Mm.
And he's also closely associated with a new gym called Kizuna Base.
Mm-hmm.
And that gym is actually a security company, like bodyguard company.
That's funny.
And they're longtime sponsors of like Boku and Yachi and all those people.
Oh, so is that okay? Because I know the guy who the Yogibo is a big sponsor of Yachi as well. So I was wondering if maybe they helped as well.
No, it's just, this is different, but like, and so it makes sense that when they opened their own gym, it seems like they're paying people that are associated to this guy. This manager used to be the manager at Crazy Bee. He's Ayaka Hamasaki's manager. He's Ai's manager. He's Miki Mutono's manager. He's Boku's manager. He's Yachi's manager. And so a lot of them train at Kizuna Base now.
Okay.
And so I think there's a lot of sponsorship and involvement with that.
Gotcha. Well, listen, I know that we kind of a running joke would be like, how's this Crazy B fighter going to lose his next match? And
yeah, exactly. But now they have Itsuki Hirata. They have Park Siwoo Park. They have Miyu. They have Motoya. So I mean, they have Wiki there. So I mean, they've rebuilt the gym nicely.
I'm really glad. I'm really glad that they're kind of getting out of kids shadow, because I think that was always a problem. Was that hey, this is a gym where kids started, where Kyoji started, come by, and they never really adapted to the changing scene of.
My theory on the problem is that Miyu. I think Miyu is the reason it's rebounded quite well. I think she's been working very hard to rebuild it.
I'm glad.
But she when she's not stuck in Japan, she lives in Guam.
Yeah.
So I think someone like her needs to be there to kind of keep it in check, because without her, it was just kind of people training themselves, and there wasn't like a Yamamoto there to lead kind of thing.
Gotcha. I want to read a comment, Daniel, about the Matoya Okada. He says that Matoya has better boxing than Okada, but Okada has much stronger punches. Matoya will try single leg for sure, no matter of the action, and Okada will try for a takedown if he's doing well to stand up. And a good reference is Matoya's fight of Ogi Kubo, where Ogi Kubo controlled the bout by wrestling, unless he went into exchanges with Matoya in the third round, and he was saved. The result was saved by the takedown. That last minute takedown, I remember that in that very close fight those two had.
Yeah. Well, that's what's gonna be crazy when we get to the Okigabo fight. Is Okigabo has had so many close fights. It's gonna be like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so might as well talk about it, because he'll be the next next match card. Hiromasa Okukubo taking on Takeshi Kanten Kasugai, if you want to go by his nickname. Rematch from VTJ many years ago. He beat.
I loved VTJ. VTJ for their short run had some amazing fights.
Oh yeah, and that's where Shintaro Ishitari started. A number of fighters who are still fighting to this day. That's where they start. I think Osuka was also in VTJ.
And Horiguchi fought in VTJ. Kana Asakura fought for VTJ.
It basically, if every fighter who anybody who's over the age of 30 who's a fighter in Japan probably started in VTJ in some shape or form.
Yeah, it was like, I think they were owned by Shuto. And it's kind of like Shuto is still in the middle of their prime, so they kind of like did this throwback VTJ league, which is fun, but then kind of fell apart.
Well, it's sad, especially because especially where that's where so many of these great fighters started. It's unfortunately that losing that just another avenue that's lost for these fighters to fight in. But this is a rematch. Ogi Kubo won the first fight by majority decision. Way back when. We've seen how Ogi Kubo has gone up as a fighter. Was on Tough. The semifinal as a finalist, and unfortunately gets signed. Came back to vacated his flyweight championship, and
Now he's got a new girlfriend who's also in the Rising Confession
yes.
videos.
Oh yes, the Rising Confession videos when he was I think it was the first when he had the second match with Horiguchi, and they're talking to him. He's like in that one room apartment, and I'm like, what a shit. Well, I feel it's like the best Cinderella story that you could think of. And then eventually he works his way to the title fight of Kaizakura, and I wanted him to win that fight because it would have been the perfect story. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But yeah, he's got a new girlfriend. Hopefully a better life now that he's got a number of fights in Rizin. And so yeah, now he's part of this tournament. He gets presumably maybe one last chance to possibly get that title shot. And what do you think about this fight?
I mean,
Charles?
Okikubo's kind of had some bad luck. He's only really lost to like really good fighters, especially recently. And he's so tough, but it's also hard because so many of his fights have been super close. Like he's got even his last fight, you're just like, oh man, that was like his fight with Ishiwatari, especially. It was like such a back and forth fight.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to he's always in these hard fights, is what I'm trying to get at. But he's been performing on a very high level. And I think that what we've seen is if you can't knock him out, he's just not going to get tired. Yeah. And he's going to grind you out. He's going to win the fight. But you have to try to knock him out.
If you look at the data things right behind me, look at 14 decision wins, 6 subs, 1 knockout. Yeah, I don't know if that's always his plan to try and eke out decision, but he can go all 3 rounds and then go another 13 if he wants to. Yeah, that is how well built of a machine he is.
He's just a workhorse. He's just going to put a pace on you, and he's constantly going to be grabbing you, trying to take you down, trying to push you up against the ropes. So he's going to exhaust whoever he fights.
Yeah, but this is not to take away from Kasugai, which I'm not going to lie, that's not a name I was expecting. It's kind of like you kind of had an idea who Rizin might choose, and I'll be honest, if there was no pandemic, whatever, I don't think Kasugai would be in this. I really think that he would. Yeah, I think they would have gone with somebody else. I personally think.
No, especially since Kasugai has lost to Okikubo in the past, and I think he's actually lost to Alan Yamaniha as well.
Yeah, it's not that I'm not saying that he's a bad fighter. I think it's just they're kind of working with what they have to deal with, what they have.
No. So I think what they're trying to do is, you can see in the graphic behind you see he's fought for heat, and I think they're trying to get people from a bunch of different promotions, and kind of have a royal crowning kind of. We got the Shuto, the Pancrase, got the Deep, we got the Rising fighters. So I think that they're just trying to get people from all different types of areas. And Kasugai fought some of these guys before, but I don't expect him to win this fight.
No, I don't either. But it's not. But here's the thing: Kasugai is a good fighter. Like I said, he submitted Matoya, first person to ever submit and finish Matoya. He's got a number of other impressive wins on his record. He's a guy also that is very, as you can see, 15 submission wins. So he knows how to submit somebody when the opportunity comes about.
That's just the thing with this tournament, though, is that even some of all these fighters are very good fighters. Some of them might be a little bit older, but they all have an area at least that they're very good in. And so, Kasugai is a submission artist, obviously, and if Okikubo wrestles with him, he's going to be at risk of getting submitted when he's on the ground. So anything could happen. I just think Okikubo has fought him before, so he probably knows. Kasugai's probably gotten better, but he probably has a decent idea of what to expect. Plus, this isn't his first rodeo either, so I think he'll be fine.
Here's the thing: if Okikubo was not afraid to grapple with Matoya, I don't see him being afraid at all to grapple with Kasugai.
No.
So here's the thing: the way that Kasugai can potentially win this is if Okikubo somehow just makes a mistake and just finds himself, just walks into a submission.
Yeah, because I don't see Kasugai grinding out a decision winning this fight.
No, and
I think if he wins, he has to finish him.
And that's I watch a few of Kasugai's fights in Road FC. and some other places. He's a guy who, listen, if he finishes fights, but when he goes to, he either loses by decision or like gets a close split decision. So as the rounds go on, he gets more tired. He gets less. He does not perform. He does not fight as well as he does in like the first and the beginning of the second round. And yeah, so I mean, it's I don't see anything that Kasugai can bring to this fight that Ogikubo hasn't already faced and hasn't already overcome. Or
right.
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I know that Rising didn't set up these matches. They kind of had like the random, what they call it, like the lottery.
Yeah.
To set these matches up, but I mean,
But
you got
also,
to think that they also want Okikubo to win.
Oh yeah,
in this
absolutely.
fight because Okikubo is very popular, and I think I don't remember if he picked to fight Kasugai.
I he did say during the press conference that it was destiny that these two that had this rematch.
I forget which one of them picked this fight.
Was it Shuto? I think it was Shuto because didn't he said he wanted to get the toughest opponent first, and that was Kai?
No, Asakura Kai picked Shuto.
That was it. Okay, that was it.
But it's kind of I don't remember who picked who because they all got to pick except for the last couple, obviously. But I just feel like Okikubo's got to be the favorite in this.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he is definitely. I don't. Yeah, again, don't see what Kasugai. I mean, imagine if all the people who you would call the underdogs or the imagine if they all won. Imagine what would go on in the Rizin office. You know, if like Shuto, Kasugai, Okada, and all these guys won. I kind of want you kind of want that to happen because it kind of throws a wrench in what plans are, and that kind of just makes things more interesting. But I don't know. I don't see. Well, I guess here's the other thing we could talk about Ogikubo. You know, he was in two major wars with Ishwatari Matoya, and then he got knocked out by Kai. What do you think you think that he's gonna still be the same guy that we saw previous to those fights, or do you think we might? I mean, the Takizawa fights that he had and he won. He didn't look as impressive. I thought he seemed a lot slower, and he seemed I don't know, more tentative. I could be wrong.
I haven't seen any like consistent sign like of his decline yet, and every fighter is just so different. You don't know when that decline is going to happen, but I haven't seen any signs of it yet. So I don't think it's going to. I mean, it could, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to speak on it. But I would say I think he's still fine. I mean, the Kai knockout's probably the worst one recently, but he seemed to recover from that quite fine, I'd say.
Okay, yeah. I mean, listen,
I understand what you're saying, but every fighter's so different. It's hard to like calculate that in because you never know when that decline's going to happen.
It's because I always like to point to Chuck Liddell when he started getting knocked out near the end of his career, and he was just not the same in any of those.
I mean, once the chin went with him, it was always gone. It never came back.
And Ogikubo has a chin, or at least had a chin. I don't. After that Kai fight, he did take some massive damage. Well, those three fights: Matoya, Ishitari, and the Kai fight, all three back to back. So I'm just hoping that we don't, see a flash knockout, because if a flash knockout happens, that'll tell me that maybe Ogikubo has lost a lot of that grit, a lot of that toughness that he is so well known for.
I think he'll try to avoid some of those wild striking exchanges though, and just try to wrestle him.
Do you think it'll be a split decision win? Do you think we're gonna get a very, very close?
That'd be in keeping with Okikubo's recent trend of very close fights. And their last fight was a majority decision, right?
Between these two?
Yeah,
it was a majority decision. Yeah.
So I feel like it'd be in keeping if it was a draw-esque majority decision or a split decision.
Okay. Have they said what happens if there's a draw, or the judges have to pick a winner?
I bet they do. I bet they have a must-winner situation.
Okay. Actually, I did see a fight Kasugai had in Road C, and it was too close to judge, so they actually did a round extension.
Extra round.
Yeah.
Extension round. I love extension rounds.
Do you think that should be more in MMA, Charles?
No, I don't think it should be an issue because with 5 and 3 round fights, the only reason that I liked it in Japan was because Japan judges are so indecisive. There were so many draws,
Yes.
and I thought it was nice to actually have a definitive winner because they just kept doing draw. There's like a weird time period whereas unless you completely dominated someone, and they're just going to say it was a draw.
It also didn't help that a lot of those fights were 2 rounds. So it's like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
one
the
round, 2 round.
mhm.
Oh, well, one guy, 1 round, one guy, second round, draw.
That was what's super annoying about like Jules and like Shuto is they had all these 2 round fights where it's like, well, each person won 1 round, draw. I'm like, ugh.
It's always funny to, like when you look at fighters from the beginning of the career, there'll be like, I know I'm trying to remember which fighter, but like one fighter had like 5 draws in the
Yeah, it's like
beginning, and it's
a
like,
crazy number usually.
how do you? And it's like as a fighter, like, okay, this is my 5th draw. I don't know, like, should I take that? Should I take that as a positive or a negative? Because I'm not losing, but I'm not winning either. So
Yeah.
just but listen, yeah, the round extensions, I guess it's one of those things where like there are times in when I watch fights here where like I don't think either guy did enough to win. They
Yeah.
like and that to me should be like rules grounds for a round extension. And if
Well,
nobody wins, just give it. Nobody clearly wins, give it a draw. I don't. I've always had
they
a
seem a lot
problem.
more common. They seem a lot more common in kickboxing over
Yeah.
here,
Oh yeah.
which I'm completely fine with because I mean, if it's the norm and they're used to it, then yeah,
Mhm.
make them do it. Make there be a winner.
And before we go on to the next fight, I just want to talk. Gary says Ogi Kubo over content via submission. So he's
Oh wow,
picking. He's saying that Ogi Kubo is going to get a decision. Going to get a finish. Uh,
interesting.
so that's interesting, Gary, that you picked that. Um, Daniel has some comments. He says the good side of the pandemic is that Rizin had to go deeper to the Japanese talents, even outside of Shuto Deep Pancras. And I do agree. It's great to see that some of these fighters, who may never
Yeah,
got a chance, get like actually a moment to like fight on the big stage. And we saw that with Xi'an. I don't know if Xi'an would ever have been
no,
on a Rising card if without this. And look at this, he's now in this tournament now, and is now having his own little Cinderella story.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and Hey Shin says, thank you very much for promoting Ryzen. Really enjoyed your content. So detailed. Appreciated, Shin. Thank you so much. And Daniel says, the goal of Ogi Kubo of this fight is to make a replay from their fight from 2014 just to beat content on the ground. And he also says that they shouldn't judge 2 rounders by a 10-point system. That's a whole other discussion
Yeah,
I have no time for. That'll be for
yeah,
another day.
2 rounders just shouldn't happen. 2 rounds are stupid.
Oh yeah.
2 rounds should only be like if it's an amateur fight,
Yeah.
something like that. I understand,
Yeah.
but 2 rounds are just stupid.
So let's talk about the next fight. Which I'm pretty sure will not go to a decision. I'm at least that's what my prediction is, and that is Naoki Inoue, Shintaro Ishiwatari. I'm so excited for this fight. Charles, tell me your thoughts on this fight.
All right, no secret. Said many times, Naoki Inoue is my pick to win the entire tournament. Naoki Inoue is a monster. He's a stud. He is in his athletic prime. He's like entering his prime. He's very young. He's been fighting since he's been a small child. His old coach was like obsessed with making him a UFC champion, so he's been training like crazy. I spoke to his sister recently, and when she went to the United States, I was like, "So how's the training different?" And she was like, "We train a lot less in the U.S." I was kind of surprised by that, and I was like, "Well, how long were you training at your old gym?" And she said, "Oh, like 9 hours a day." So we're talking about Naoki, who like ever since he was 12 has been training MMA 9 hours a day. Finally, he's in his early 20s, stud, and Ishiwatari is coming off of an injury,
Yeah, he
and
always
he's
needs
also
to
coming
be
off those
injured.
wars. Yeah,
He always because remember he was gone for a long time in Ryzen, and then he came back with the Okukuba
yeah,
fight, and then he got injured again. I think after that
yeah,
fight.
he did. And Naoki has called out Ishiwatari several times, which
Mm-hmm.
makes me think that Naoki has been watching Ishiwatari. And Naoki's striking is very good. His
Yes.
grappling is very good. And I think he actually trains with some people associated with Naoya Inoue, who's like a really famous boxer in Japan.
Yes, that's correct. I could definitely confirm that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he very high level boxing. He's training with Mizugaki and some other high level fighters. So his goal is to eventually become a UFC champion. And Naoki Inoue is a stud. I think he's going to win this fight. anywhere it takes place. He's Ishiwatari is kind of a brawler when it's on his feet. And I think Ishiwatari is kind of a brawler. And Naoki Inoue has a very clean jab and a very strong jab. And I think he'll use his jab to kind of dominate the striking exchanges.
Mm.
And we've already seen in his Shuto Watanabe fight and his Motoya fight, if you give him an inch on the ground, he will take it and he will submit you. I mean, Shuto Watanabe has an insane number of rear naked choke finishes. I think he's got like 12 or 14 rear naked choke finishes. And so to get finished by that move just shows you how good Naoki is at his grappling. Plus, I mean, he made Motoya look amateurish almost. I mean, he just blew him away on the feet. And as soon as it touched the ground, rear naked choke, it's over.
I also just like to talk about his stand-up. Since his UFC, since the Trent Girdham fight, his stand-up has looked like light years ahead of what it was. And I know that he hasn't had much in-ring time to really show it off, but I think he outstruck Trent Girdham in their fights. It seems like since going to Sonic Squad, and that's where he's trained now since he's living in Japan full-time now, he seems to have improved more as a fighter. And I don't know that's because of the 9-hour potential training regimen that they're doing.
I think he actually feels the opposite. They want to get him back in the US.
Oh yeah.
And training again. But I think he's hitting that groove where he's able to apply what he's learned in training in the fight. He's like making those connections finally. And I mean, Mizugaki's a stud, and he's training with Mizugaki a lot. I mean, I remember watching Mizugaki back in the WEC days, and Sonic Squad is also very close to my house. It's a very good gym. But I would say it's more like a jiu-jitsu based gym. And then he's getting special boxing training for his strikes. His striking has always been good because the original base is karate. I think he's a karate fighter. But I mean, just look at his sister. Her striking is amazing too. But
also, we can't bury the lead here. He's also only 23.
So I'm gonna say, like, we can't. I love this tournament, but the kind of like the one criticism of the tournament would be a lot of the fighters are kind of a little bit older. I wouldn't say that they're fossils, but they're kind of probably near the peak of their career, getting close to the downward kind of. They're in their athletic peaks, I would say, or near the end of their athletic peaks. And now he's kind of like that young, hungry fighter who's in his physical prime, who's kind of coming up. And if you would have asked Japanese fans a year ago, they wouldn't even have known who he was.
Yeah.
And now Ishiwatari is like, they say, I got the scariest guy. They're talking about him like he's a monster. I interviewed Kana Watanabe, and I'm like, who do you think's going to win? And she's like, everyone says Inoue is going to win. He's like a Superman. Like he's kind of like the Naoki. It's funny because Naoki doesn't talk that much, but I feel like he's like the boogeyman of this tournament. And I think he's got to be the favorite to win. I mean, it's a tournament, anything could happen, but I expect Naoki to win this.
I like how Ishiwatari. I mean, Inoue. Basically, they promoted him as a guy who's what is it? Very quiet, very he doesn't know how to speak in public, but he knows how to fight. Very shy. Yes,
well, they also promote Motoya in the same way, and that's why it was hilarious when they fought each other because like the VTR footage was essentially both of them not knowing how to talk on the microphone.
Yeah,
just like pick up the mic and they'd be like, yes, and they put the microphone back down.
But I've interviewed Inoue many times, and listen, I love getting a chance to talk to them. But listen, talking is just not his thing. Some people they know how to talk the game, others don't. It's just a thing that's it just comes to some people and some people don't. But that thing, it's kind of like the GSP thing. I never thought that GSP, GSP was always great at soccer, but he was so good watching him fight that it made up for anything that for his lack of his English, all that stuff, and I think that's Rizin managed to nail it, why you should watch this guy because he's that damn good. He may not know how to talk, but listen, he knows how to choke somebody out.
Well, that's what one of Rizin's strengths is, because UFC kind of falls into the problem where it's like you don't fall into their cookie cutter what they think you should be, they're not going to promote you.
Yeah.
Whereas Rizin doesn't try to change who you are; they just promote you for who you are. So I mean, they're showing those VTR footages of Tokoro. They're like, oh, You had a giant porn collection. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Or they had Inoue on there, and they kind of tease and poke fun of the fact that he's not good in the microphone.
Oh
And
yeah.
when they do that, like endears them to the crowd.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think it all works.
Yeah, yeah. Also, we should also make we should mention this for the tournament. Not only does it look like somebody, whoever wins, will get the a title shot against Kyoji, but also there's $100,000 for the winner.
Yeah.
I think it's like $100,000 in American.
I didn't see what it was, but it would be, it wouldn't be 100,000 yen because that'd only be like $10,000. That wouldn't be a.
Oh yeah, no,
I
think it's the equivalent of $100,000 in
that'd make more sense
in US dollars. Which,
and
listen,
money.
that's a lot of money for an MMA fighter, and especially what we learned, with this past Sunday with some exhibition boxing fights, is that a lot of MMA fighters are not paid correctly. So this is an opportunity for a lot of these guys, for one guy, to make maybe the most amount of money in their career.
Did you watch that little preparation video they had on Naoki Inoue?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, he's looking strong. So I feel very good picking him to win the tournament.
No, but we can't discount Ishitari. And by
the way,
I
mean, it's a very tough opening fight for him. Ishitari is a stud.
I'm looking at Ishitari's record and like the amount of people he's fought that's already been in this tournament. Like he's fought Otsuka twice. He had the fight with Ogi Kubo.
I was laughing. He's fought so many people in this tournament.
Let's see. I'm still going through the list. Let's see. Yeah,
fought Alan Yamaniha in 2013.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Oh, that's down.
It's so funny that he's like you could literally have like a number of rematches just by having Ishitari in this thing.
They also were, he fought Sasaki recently, Uruka Sasaki.
Yes.
Who is Inoue's teammate.
Yes.
You got to think that gives Inoue a little bit of insight as well.
Yes. And also that's the thing as well. Why? Because after that fight, I think after that fight, Inoue had the Shuto fight. Was that the one where he called out Ishitari?
I believe so, because I think Ishitari was in the commentary booth.
Yeah, and that was like the one. I noticed that like when he we're just talking about how he's not the best talker, but like when he called out Ishitari, I could feel like passion and like there's like I want you next, and luckily we got to fight.
That was so awkward though, because they handed him the mic and they're like, "Who do you want to fight next?" And he like didn't say anything for a while, and then he was like, "Ishitari." And Ishitari was like, "I'm injured. Call someone else out."
But at least when he said Ishitari, like he felt like he really meant it.
Well, I think he's been a target of his for a while.
Yeah, and I think probably like out of all the fights, this is probably the most high level. For both the Osaka and this show.
Now I'm very pro Naoki, but I mean, this isn't an easy fight. But I think he picked this fight because it's a fight that motivates him.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be an important factor. But Ishitari is a brawler. I mean, he can knock anybody out.
What do you? How do you think this fight goes? Do you think this will be? Do you think one of them will finish the other? Do you think this will be a very close split decision?
I think Naoki finishes him with submission.
I
think they strike. Actually, I'm gonna take that back. I think it either finishes with a. I think it probably goes to decision, but I think Naoki to win, and I think it'll probably be mainly a striking affair. I'm gonna reverse course on my earlier gut instinct.
So do you think Ishitari makes the same mistake that Matoya and Watanabe did, and he gets that way, or do you think it's in a way using that jab, and maybe even rocking him, and then Ishitari kind of, I don't know, panics or tries to go for a takedown, and then that's how he finishes?
I think Inoue works behind the jab and strikes. And if he's winning with the striking, he's just going to keep doing that and make Ishitari adjust. And if Ishitari tries to take it down, I think Inoue will be more than happy to go down with him. But I think he's going to stick behind the jab and try to show off his striking in this fight.
I almost wish this fight could start on the ground because I would see, because they're both so high level grapplers. But again, we've seen what Inoue does a high level grappler. So I don't even know if would Ishitari be able to even hang with Inoue if it goes to the ground.
It's like a coin. It's so hard to talk about Naoki Inoue because you're like, is he a better grappler or is he a better striker? Because he's so good at both, it's almost impossible to decide which he's better at. And I mean, maybe his striking shows like he shows his striking off more, but I mean, he was training at Renzo Gracie's for a long time, and he's been grappling his entire life. So he's gonna be very comfortable on the ground. I don't think he's gonna be intimidated or scared to be there.
What if Ishitari wins though? What do you think this does for the tournament? Does that throw a wrench in like
No,
the
I think
brackets?
it's good. No matter who wins, is good because if Ishitari wins, he's very popular. He's got a lot of fans. People like him, and he's next Pancrase champion. So you have that connection as well. So I think people like Ishitari, and if he wins, it's good. If Naoki wins, it's the new up and comer that's getting more and more popular that wins. So I think Rizin doesn't really care who wins this fight.
Oh yeah, this is kind of like the best. I think the best match made as well.
Yeah.
It is a hard fight to pick. I think I could see either one winning, and it would be no surprise if Ishitari somehow submitted Inoue. I would not be surprised if Inoue submitted Ishitari. I would not be surprised if one got knocked out. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to decision. That's the only way I'll be surprised if it goes to decision, because I feel like these two are quick or they're finishers, and I'd be really surprised
if you like present a moment's weakness, they're both going to be ones to take advantage of it.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, yeah. So I did talk to Ishitari before this fight, and he said that Rizin is apparently promoting him as like the manliest man or something in the as like the nickname for the VTRs or something. The translation wasn't it was very hard to get an accurate translation, but it's like manliest man or like the strongest man in the tournament or something. When the interview drops, maybe somebody can better get a more direct translation, but apparently that's Ishitari's never had an MMA nickname, and it's apparently that's what that's what Rizin
they're trying to make him one.
Yeah, and they do that with all the fighters. Is that if somebody doesn't have a nickname, they kind of like the VTRs will just be like, Mr. Whatever, they come up with some weird nicknames for
Well, the guy that makes those videos is like a genius. Those videos are amazing.
Oh, I will say this, that like I think that 60% of my love of Rizin is those VTRs and just how they get me so hyped up for like any of the fights, even if it's like two regional fighters from Gifu. They make me excited to watch that.
Well, my wife and her friends, I mean, they've openly said like if those videos didn't exist, they probably wouldn't be fans of Rizin.
Oh yeah,
so I think it does a lot to get the casual fans in.
Oh yeah, and listen, if you want to compare it to like the UFC, where you just see two guys just like sitting down in a chair and like next to like in their gym, it's like it's light years of just creating it.
But the Ishitari video is essentially just his wife's restaurant and her talking to Ogikubo's girlfriend. I mean, the UFC is never going to make a video like that.
No. And listen, but that's that's what works, is that they make these people, they somehow simultaneously make them stars and relatable.
Right.
So you get the best of both worlds, where they don't seem like too far off as regular people, but then you feel like, oh, this person, there's something special about this guy or this girl.
Well, I think that they try their best to like highlight what makes each person unique.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's no secret the UFC is primarily concerned with promoting themselves as a brand.
Yeah.
So.
Christian says that he picks Inoue over Shintaro via submission, and I think that Inoue is going to win by submission. I think by a third round. I think by third round. I think we're going to see I'm going to say guillotine choke. You think rear naked?
I mean, it's hard to not say rear naked. It seems to be his go-to.
Yeah. So, imagine that if he got three rear nakeds in a consecutive fight. That'd be amazing.
He and Shuta Watanabe and Keitaro can hang out and start the rear naked choke club.
That's funny. Yeah. And with that, we have the last of the opening round matches. I'm sorry, I'll get the graphic up. Kai Azakura taking on Shuto Watanabe. Speaking of Watanabe, interesting fight, I think, just because they're just so diametrically different in how they fight and what their skills are. Kai, more of a striker, as it says on there, and Watanabe, obviously a grappler, finished, what is that, 12 of his fights by submission.
I think almost all of those are rear naked chokes.
Yeah. And, he's done,
or the magical choke.
The magical, that's why he calls it, yeah. and Kai, former champion, so we knew that he was going to be in this, and so I think this is an interesting fight. I don't think it's the most high level fight. I think Kai is a much better fighter than Shuto. Shuto's never really, he's never really he's never really changed his style. And listen, why fix something that's not broken? We've seen Aoki has basically been the same fighter since he started fighting, and listen, he's still successful at that. But I think in the case of Watanabe,
he's not fighting Kaya Sakura though.
exactly, and we've even seen Aoki even struggle sometimes when it comes to grappling. But with Watanabe, we saw, like you said, he got submitted by Inoue second time, or maybe first. He's only ever been submitted in his career, and so
the band.
What do you think about this fight? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm just like an MMA hipster, but I kind of want Shuto Watanabe to win. Just the way they've been promoting him is kind of like this. I mean, his voice is like so soft spoken. He eats a bunch of sweets and candy. His girlfriend's Deep Jewels fighter. His dad and mom are both fighters, and he just seems like a pretty nice guy. But it's like obviously, I mean, Kaya Sakura picked to fight him for a reason. Like, I believe this was the very first match that was set. Kaya Sakura got the first pick, and he chose to pick Shuto Watanabe. And Shuto Watanabe made a joke about it. But so I think Kai sees something in Shuto's game that he thinks he can exploit. And I think Kai sees that he has a clear striking advantage in this fight. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Kai's got to be the favorite to win this by knockout. But Shuto's last fight was his best performance ever.
Yeah.
And his biggest win ever. And Shuto, if you remove the Naoki Inoue fight, Shuto is on a win streak outside of that fight. So if you look at his record, it's kind of a crazy number, but he's consistently been winning outside of a very high level opponent. And so I think Shuto, if it goes to the ground, Shuto can do something. But I mean, does it go to the ground is the big thing.
Yeah.
Especially in a league with soccer kicks and knees and now elbows, Kai's going to have a lot of tools to keep Shuto off of him.
Do you think a lot of these fighters are going to remember that they can use elbows?
No, I don't think. I always remember like when Ayaka Hamasaki started fighting for Invicta FC, it took her like 2 or 3 fights before she started throwing elbows on the ground. Because I think a lot of fighting is just like muscle memory, what you've been training. And if you haven't been training to do it, you're just not going to remember to do it.
Yeah. So I think you brought up a great point. I think that Kai definitely can see something that they can exploit with Watanabe. And I even think if Watanabe brings it to the ground, I think Kai has enough scramble and enough submission defense, enough grappling defense that he can get out of a bad position, a potentially bad position. This isn't, Watanabe is great in the ground, but I don't think he's, this is not like Satoshi we're talking about or Kleber. We have a guy, he submitted guys who are, I would say, mid-level, B-level fighters in Japan, but like Kai is even with the fight that he had previous that he won against his tournament in Rizin, he actually got his back taken. He was able to defend it pretty well, but he still got, for a guy with
Watanabe was losing most of that fight.
Oh,
up until the finish. Oh, you're talking Kai?
No, I was talking about Watanabe.
Yeah, I think he was losing most of that fight. I think he lost the first round pretty strong, and I think he had to finish the guy to win the fight.
Yeah, against Tamaru. Excuse me, I couldn't remember the name for a second. Yeah, it was against Tamaru, and he did finish with the magical choke, but he got his back taken. So
he did.
And
he had to defend against the choke himself for a while.
Yeah, and I don't see Kai submitting Watanabe, but Watanabe has been knocked out before. He has, he's has lost before, and so when you take on a guy who has 10 knockouts and who's a striker, a very strong and precise striker like Kai Sakura, getting to the ground is an extra thing you have to worry about, and Kai just has to keep it standing, and I think Kai wins it that way.
I mean, I think the clear pick is that Kai's going to knock him out.
How?
And
If Watanabe knocked out Kai, I don't know. Like, would Japanese social media implode? I don't know.
I mean, rising officials might start openly weeping in the audience.
You see Sakakibara just storm off.
Yeah.
He sells the company to Dana.
But I mean, I like Shuto Watanabe, so I mean, I'd be fine with him winning, but I think most casual fans would not be happy with it.
Listen, it would do wonders for Watanabe as an MMA fighter.
Yeah. Can we just take a second to talk about how awesome it is that a guy that came from the outsider is fighting a guy from the Nexus in
Yes.
Rizin right now?
Yes, and a guy who's also is whose father created Shuto has never fought in Shuto himself.
How hilarious is it that he's named after Shuto and he's never fought for Shuto?
I don't understand that. There's got to be something like I cannot believe that legitimately makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
You would
You'd think that Shuto would like embrace him and be like, "You're going to be our mascot."
Is there something I don't know, Charles? Do you know anything about that? Is there something like is there just because I don't know, is there new management or something that took over? Or
I mean, Shuto now, I mean, it's no secret. Shuto now is essentially kind of like a feeder league for ONE FC now.
Yeah.
But I mean, when he was young, though, Shuto would have been a very strong organization. So maybe he just couldn't get into it. But I mean, Shuto was, when he was been younger, probably one of the top organizations in Japan.
I mean, like you had fighters in Rizin, like you said before, Fedor would get his guys on his thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just surprised that Shuto Senior couldn't Watanabe Senior couldn't be like, hey, want to give my son, give my son some fights. And it makes but that's what I always liked about Rizin is that Rizin always seemed to be like this when they first started, it seemed like it'd be an area of like neutral ground where fighters from there could fight here and there would be no politicking just because it's like neutral grounds.
Yeah, that's kind of like the original idea of it. It was like a fight federation where they would just get fighters from different organizations to fight each other. And as it got bigger, it kind of developed its own roster as well. But I remember when it first got started, they were only really ever doing the New Year's shows.
Oh yeah,
then they started doing a couple more shows a year, and they got bigger and bigger.
I missed the flags that they used, the banners of the promotions that they used to be working with. I remember
like Bellator, KSW, Road FC. They'd have them all up there.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing that Rizin's kind of not like that. They're kind of become their own promotion in a way, and so that's good and all. But listen, it was always cool to just know, like, oh hey, you could have the deep strawweight champion, flyweight champion take on the deep the pancreas strawweight flyweight champion.
It looks like they still have a pretty good relationship with most of those organizations.
Yeah.
I think they all realize it's mutually beneficial. It like elevates them. It elevates everybody to share the fighters.
I also have no doubt that like the pandemic has kind of strengthened that because now like there's literally Rizin doesn't have a lot of fighters to pick from. I'm seeing fighters that Rizin picks get booked on shows that are for deep and pancreas as well. So it definitely seems to be like a symbiotic mutual thing.
Yeah.
Shuto's kind of like, I don't know. Shuto's kind of like the outlaw.
Yeah, I've heard that actually. The rumor on the street is that they're actually like trying to make their contracts stricter to make it so that the fighters kind of have to either stay in Shuto or go to ONE FC. And so I think there might be less Shuto fighters and Rising in the future.
Oh, that's disappointing. Yeah, that's very disappointing. But yeah, regarding this fight, the outsider taking on the Nexus champion.
That's hilarious.
So I definitely feel that this is Kai's fight. I think Kai knocks him out. I think first round. I don't think that Watanabe is going to have a lot to bring this fight. Unless Kai gets injured or something, like a freak injury or something, or he's maybe he was filming too many YouTube videos and he didn't get enough
hanging out with Panchan Rina too much. No, but I think that Kai's just gonna try to blitz him and end it as quick as possible.
Yeah,
he's trying to hit him hard. He's gonna hit him with a combo, and then he's gonna hit him with kicks on the ground until the ref pulls him off.
I think Rizin is definitely trying to. They're hoping for a final between him and Inoue. I think that's what in their minds that they want. And I think that's a great final, but as they say, anything can happen in a fight. But I definitely feel this is Kai's fight to win.
Me too.
Christian says he picks Azakura over Shuto via either third round KO or throwing decision. I don't think this is going to decision at all. I don't
see it more of a first round finish, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah. It's and I mean, and listen, if he submits Shuto, I think that's really impressive. That makes me like more excited for potentially.
That that's
Hi-
not going to happen. It's not going to be a submission. It's going to be a knockout.
Oh yeah. Oh, I definitely. But imagine if he did somehow submit.
It'd be crazy.
I think that
But I
yeah.
mean, Kai has been his gym made a partnership with Miyata's gym, Team Brave,
Oh
and so you got
really?
to think his wrestling's gotten better.
Hmm.
And so it's going to be harder to take him down because he's training with Olympic level wrestlers now.
Hmm. Hmm. And with that, we're gonna move on to the one sole title match of the show. Finally, this lightweight title gets
Hmm.
a waist to be around after what seems like forever. That I thought that when the Grand Prix happened, I thought that's when I thought Tofik was officially champion, but like apparently he wasn't,
I think
or
he was
something.
the tournament champion
Yeah.
originally. Hmm.
So yeah, we got the somehow incredibly popular fighter from Azerbaijan, Tofik Musayev,
Yeah.
taking on Roberto Satoshi de Souza. Um, I'm really excited for this fight. Again, fight when fighters are so opposite, I get so
Yeah.
excited for those fights. And these two are very opposite in how
Yeah.
they fight and how they finish their fights. What do you think about this fight, Charles? And
Well, first off,
how happy you are to see Tofik back?
love it. I mean, he's a great fighter, and this is like a fight that would make any not a fight that
Yes.
would make like any guy trying to pick who's going to win like scratch their heads because essentially what Souza is essentially undefeated except for a fight where he got injured, where I think Johnny Cage punched him and broke his orbital bone, and kind of like a freak injury.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tofik fought him as well and beat him, I think, in the first round. And so that's their only mutual opponent. And so you essentially have one guy that's lost one fight due to an injury, and the other guy who's been on a massive win streak, much like his teammate, I think since 2014, 2015. And I think what Musayev, the only guy I can't remember the last guy he lost to. I think he hasn't lost till 2014. But in Souza, it's just so hard to measure Souza because he's essentially destroyed everybody except for that one fight. And I think Souza, I was kind of I assumed for a while that he was just like at home training at his jiu-jitsu school, but now it appears he's actually training with like kickboxers. He's training with strikers at gyms, and he's obviously he's training with Alan Yamaniha. He's training with Clever, so he's training with very good fighters. And it's kind of hard to see what his ceiling is because I thought the Yachi fight was going to be close, and he absolutely destroyed Yachi. And Souza's consistently outperformed what I thought he was going to do. And so now I feel uncomfortable saying that he's not going to do well because he's proven me wrong every time.
What do you think of the fact that he's finished all but one of his fights by striking Souza and Rizin?
I think that's kind of crazy. Yeah, you don't even think about that. He finished all but one of them by striking.
Yeah, he lost Johnny Case. But
Yeah,
the his last fight that he had, he lost. He won by submission, the triangle choke.
yeah, it's crazy. Him and Clever, once they lock it on, it's over, and like they know it's over. The crowd knows it's over. If they get you in trouble, like first off,
Tokodome. That was Tokodome, by the way.
yeah, that was a weird fight though. I was like, why did Tokodome do that? Like, why would you try to take Souza down? It seems like insane move.
Your teammates in quintet. You should know how good he is.
I'm like, why are you trying? Like, especially at the very beginning of the fight too. I'm like, what? Just let him get sweaty first, so you can at least like slip out of these submissions. But
Yeah.
that was weird. But Souza, just to me, it's just like I haven't seen what obviously his weakness is going to be striking, and Musayev can take advantage of that all day. Musayev has the wrestling background. I mean, trained with Khabib. So Souza potentially is going to have a hard time taking him down if Musayev doesn't want to go down. And so I think the way that Musayev wins this fight is he keeps it standing and he outstrikes him. But then Souza essentially knocked out and rocked badly Yachi on the feet. So anything could happen. But I think Tofik is going to have a clear advantage on the feet.
So I went on a deep dive of Tofik's fights because I really wanted to like look
Yeah.
at what he's weak in, and I actually I had to do some really like go to some seedy Russian websites to find like his
Ah,
like some of his
all the
like
good stuff.
oh
RooTube.
yeah yeah YouTube. I'm pretty sure I gave my computer some viruses just by going
Yeah.
on those websites. But I saw one fight that he had one of his 3 losses against Igon Akhmedov, which he lost by decision, and it was the only time I ever saw Tofik ever be taken down in a fight. I don't know. I couldn't find the other 2 fights that he lost if he got taken down in those fights. Oops. But I definitely never have seen him.
There's a bunch of deep graphics.
Yes, yes. Well, we did cover. We are covering deep with Mark Q. So I'm getting
Nice,
prepared
nice.
later
Very nice.
on when we.
Mark knows his stuff. Let me know when that is. I'll watch it.
Oh, definitely, definitely. It's interesting though that Tofik's he has 3 losses. One was decision, and the other 2 were by submission, triangle
Mhm.
choke and anaconda choke. Which I guess you could say both are Satoshi knows how to do very well. Question
Oh,
is, how does Satoshi so does Satoshi try who do you think tries to grapple first in this
I
fight?
think
Do you think Satoshi tries to do you think Tofik is so confident in what he can do that he's like, you know what, I don't have to worry about this homeboys submission game? Or do you think
no.
Satoshi is like, I'm really intrigued to see who goes first. If either one, this could be a
I
case where
think
like they're both so good at takedowns where they just don't go for takedowns.
yeah, but I think Satoshi has to be the one that tries to start the grappling. Just if I had to guess, because it's like his clear. I mean, it's just like Tofik's clear advantage is on the feet,
Yeah.
and Satoshi's clear advantage is on the ground. And I think this is going to be his hardest opponent to get to the ground. But as we've seen, once Satoshi gets to the ground, he doesn't need long to end it. But I think Tofik's going to be able to stop him from getting it down.
And what is and the striking? I think we could both agree that Souza's striking is not on the level of Tofik's, but I think that Souza's striking has improved since his first fight.
Yeah, the Yachi fight showed that a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, like he clearly, and this wasn't like Kitaoka or like some fighter that
Yeah.
who's gets knocked out very easily. This is I don't know if it's Yachi, so it's but he looked great in the Yachi fight when it came to the striking, absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's the he could have finished. Oh, he got top position on Yachi. He could have finished with any submission he wanted to. Literally, he
Mm-hmm.
could have just grabbed. He could have just done anything he wanted, but he chose to finish that fight with strikes. And
Yeah.
I think he did that deliberately.
Plus, he's been working with a lot of kickboxers recently, so maybe he's feeling more comfortable up there. But I would hope he's not too comfortable with it, because you got to remember like what got you to the party.
Yeah.
And his bread and butter is his grappling. He's got amazing submissions, and so I think he's gonna be looking for that. But I think the problem he's gonna face is that Tofik is gonna be the one that can decide where the fight takes place, and I think he's gonna take advantage of that.
If this goes to the ground, okay, so let's see, if this goes to the ground, like in that moment, do you think Satoshi has the advantage over
Yes.
Tofik?
Yes.
Do you think Tofik is going to try it all to grapple, or do you think he's just going to be smart and be like, you know what, I'm going to stay on my feet against this guy?
I think it would be stupid to try to grapple, so I don't think he would. But I mean, he might be that confident. But I think why even open up that option for Satoshi?
Because we saw the Tokodomi fight, that's what happens when you try to.
I mean, Tokodomi is very confident on the ground. He's former high caliber fighter.
Too confident.
But I mean, why even bring that skill set into play? Why would you not just keep it standing and eliminate the submissions altogether?
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is a hard fight to choose, Charles? I think this is a really hard fight to choose.
Very hard.
Because they are so good. Tofik, he's got powerful striking. He's got great wrestling. And he can also, he can. The other thing is that I don't know. I don't think for Satoshi, none of his fights have gone to decision, but have they gone to beyond the second round by any chance? I know he had some regional fights but for Rizin, none of them have
Good
gone.
question.
I don't like if it goes to the third round, is Satoshi ready to
It's a good point you bring up. I didn't think about that.
I
think a lot of his fights have been fairly quick. But I mean, the problem with picking this fight is that we really haven't seen the ceiling of either fighter. They're both just rising. We haven't really seen them stumble yet, so we don't know what their limitations are yet. So it's kind of hard to pick on that regard. But
actually, as I thought, I had a feeling the Kitaoka, I thought that was ended in the first round, but no, that was the second round. So every fight that Satoshi has been in, other than that one Kitaoka fight, has been a first round finish.
Yeah, it's a good thing you pointed out. I mean, so you got to think that if Tofik knows that too, Tofik's going to try to draw it out.
Mm-hmm. And do you think then he might be willing to grapple more? Because like you said, you get sweaty, a little bit more tired, you get a little bit more reckless. Do you think then it's like, okay, Tofi can maybe grapple a little bit more safely and not have to worry about the submissions as much?
It just depends on how much success he's having on the feet. I think if he's winning comfortably on the feet, he's going to stay there. But I think if he starts having problems, that's when he'll decide to take it down.
Now again, we talked about this with Vugar. What do you think about and also in the case of Tofik, he voluntarily left MMA, took a sabbatical to fight in the Azerbaijani army for some conflict that's going on. I'm not entirely 100% sure what it was, but he took
Armenia.
How long was that? Like about 6 months, maybe 6-7 months.
He was out for a while, and so I mean, you got to think his heart hasn't been training a lot recently. But
and like he has a travel thing here. He has a quarantine thing here. I don't know what type of training he's able to do. And also when I say training, I just don't mean like practicing grappling, practice striking. Cardio training. Doing going on the treadmill. Wearing the silly mask to see. And then coach goes like, good. After 2 hours or whatever. So. Listen, I don't think you're getting a lot of cardio running back and forth at the Tokyo Dome Hotel or whatever hotel that they're staying at.
I mean, as I said earlier, I think this is the perfect time to fight him.
Yeah.
Because he does have it would seem that he has a handicap.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's not an amateur. He's been fighting for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to think that he's made adjustments to compensate for that.
I also the other thing also is that since this is his first time having to fight post quarantine, if he had like a tune-up fight against somebody like a Kitaoka or something, and then we saw how he could fight, how he fights after being in this bubble, this box, then I think I can have a better idea of like, okay, he's a little bit slower, he's not as explosive, or even for himself, he could decide, what, I can do this while I'm in my hotel room or not, all that. But that's the question. I have no idea how these two, Vugar and Tofik, are going to look as soon as they get to the ring. Like, are they, I'm hoping that they don't get tired of walking down that Tokyo Dome ramp.
I have a hard time though, because I have a hard time like disconnecting Souza from his brother. Because I remember watching his brother fight Keitaro, and I'm sure he's a very good grappler, but his striking was just not very good.
Yeah.
And so I have to like remember like Souza is not his brother. Like his striking has looked better than his brother. But
do you think what is the likelihood that Souza can knock out Tofik?
I mean, he's a big guy. He hits very hard, but I don't see it happening.
What is the likelihood that Tofik could submit Satoshi?
Very low, incredibly low. I'd say lower than the chance of Souza knocking him out.
Okay. So let's also talk about this because you brought before Tofik's popularity with the Japanese audience. I don't understand it. It's not that I'm not against it. I'm not like, oh, why are the Japanese following this guy? I'm just perplexed. Like, why him?
I think it was a big tournament. The tournament he was in was watched by a lot of people. And I think the Japanese people liked the people that wanted to be part of the tournament. And I think there's kind of like a Fedor thing going on, where like Fedor didn't talk a lot either, but people just respected how good of a fighter he was and how well he performed. I mean, Tofik did very good in that tournament and just essentially destroyed everybody. And so I think they respect that.
Well, do you think? What about the fact that he's Azerbaijani as well? I don't know what Japan's connection to Azerbaijan is, but like, yeah, you get Americans, you get people from England. This is a guy from Azerbaijan. I don't even know how familiar people from Japan are with the country, but like, is it kind of just like, I don't know. It must have been, I don't know if it was like when Fedor came by, you just saw this silent Russian guy, there's the intrigue of him being from this country. That's probably also a lot of people generally don't know about. Is that also something you think that's also kind of intriguing?
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, maybe people are interested in the fact that he's not Japanese, but I I think they like they a lot of the things like to tie the connection with Khabib when they talk about him, and they talk about stuff like that. But I don't know if they necessarily talk about Azerbaijan so much. I think they just like it's kind of like the same thing with Iri in the UFC, in that Japanese fans showed their support, and then the fighters reciprocated it, and the Japanese fans liked that. And you see Tawfiq, he's constantly talking to his Japanese fans on his social media pages.
I think he
So
even has his. I think he has like Japanese his katakana for his name.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, if the fighters give the Japanese fans the attention, they're going to respond to it. And he and Iri have both done that, and so they both have huge Japanese fan bases.
So I'm good. So here comes the $1 million question: how do you think this fight goes, and who is the first ever inaugural Rizin lightweight champion?
It's so hard to pick because, as I said, they're both just all they've been doing is winning. But I got to think Tawfiq wins.
So
despite the handicaps.
I've never actually. I think I've only picked Tawfiq once for a fight, and that was against Tyson Osawa. I didn't pick him to win the tournament. I picked Johnny Case initially to win, and I picked Cruikshank to beat him. But ever since that tournament, I've been on. I've been on the Tawfiq train. I think this guy is maybe top 15 lightweights in the world at this point.
It seems very clear that the UFC is also interested in him.
Oh yeah,
and that he actually rejected a UFC offer to stay in Rizin.
Do you think it's gonna be a Jiri thing where like he wants to get a few more fights, but kind of like write out that contract, make some defenses, and then you could say like, listen, you're getting a former champion for Rizin. You're getting somebody who's who also knows Khabib. Do you think he's kind of doing a little power play thing?
No, I think he likes fighting in Japan. I think he likes Rizin and the Japanese fan base. And I think he was going to go to the UFC, and then Rizin made an offer to keep him. And so I think Rizin was able to convince him to stay for a couple fights before he goes to the UFC.
Yeah. And by the way, I guess a lot of people,
because there was that time period where it was wondering whether or not he was going to come back to Rizin.
Yeah, so there was that whole thing where apparently there was some discrepancy with like the pay, where apparently his manager claimed, and that's the other thing is that Tawfiq didn't say anything. This is all his manager who said that we didn't get paid for the tournament, we didn't get our fight purse, and then about a few days later, I don't remember if it was Tawfiq or his manager. They said, "Oh, it's all good over here," and I
think there was an issue because I think that what did Rizin say that Rizin was. It was taking a while because they had to do an international wire transfer or something. But I don't know what was going on there, though. I don't know behind the details, but it seems like he eventually got paid, so he was fine.
And then Johnny Case was like, he did the thing with the little with the syringes, implying apparently that if you fail the drug test, apparently they said that you weren't going to get your purse money, and obviously that didn't wind up happening. So it sounded like a lot of miscommunication. I don't think Rizin was trying to fuck over Tawfiq or anything.
No, because once you get that reputation, you can't get foreign fighters anymore. Oh, exactly. And Rizin needs foreign fighters, or it doesn't have the roster pool to maintain itself.
I'm guessing also with the amount of money that you're transferring. Listen, if you're transferring like more than like 4 digits over to somebody internationally from Japan to Azerbaijan, it's not going to be lickety splits.
Japan also has very strict bank rules, way stricter than the US. So it's a lot harder to transfer money outside of Japan than you would be with in the US, for example.
And like I said, especially to Azerbaijan. It's I don't know what bank Tawfiq uses, but I'm pretty sure that whatever bank that Rizin uses probably is like, what's this? The Azerbaijani trustees of Baku or whatever.
Exactly.
But let's see. I'm gonna read Christian what he says. He picks Musayev over Roberto via KO. I know that Roberto has a damn good submission game, but considering Kofi's steamroller style through the lightweight division, and damn, it was a steamroller, including the phenomenal performance in the lightweight Grand Prix. I don't see the path of domination stopping despite the ring rust. I just hope he'll be able to fight and Rizin more often, though. And I think that's the thing is that what do you think? Who do you think Rizin hopes for this? Because here's the thing: you get Tawfiq, he wins. We don't know.
He
I know.
leaves.
Yeah, he leaves. He leaves to go UFC because he can't fight anymore in Rise, or it's just too much of a headache. And then they vacate the title again. With the Mel Cape
I mean, they
situation.
want. I mean, Satoshi's made it very clear that Satoshi doesn't want to leave.
Yeah,
Satoshi wants to keep fighting for Rizin. Satoshi lives in Japan. Satoshi speaks Japanese.
yeah,
Satoshi's very popular. And it's very. I mean, they probably want Satoshi to win. But if Tofik wins, it's not even bad for them either, because if Tofik goes to the UFC, then Rising gets a bunch of publicity, because whenever he fights, their name also gets brought up.
yeah. And that's the thing is, and I think I have no doubt the pandemic didn't happen. I think Jiri and Cape would still be in Ryzen. I don't know for the rest of the year, but I think they wouldn't have left as early as they did. Particularly Cape.
Interesting.
But I think Jiri was always bound for UFC. But I think he would have. I think he would have stayed in Ryzen a little bit longer had the.
Well, he loves fighting and Rising in Japan, but
he's basically he's a Czech weeb. That's what he is.
yeah, Czech samurai. Yeah,
A Czech samurai. And yeah, the Cape. He just won the title. And listen, and then he goes to UFC right after. You can't tell me that like he had, and especially with his post match speech. I have no doubt he would have stayed in Rise and try to maybe rematch Horiguchi or do another match with Kai or so. I think.
But with him though, I feel like you have to strike when the iron's hot, and he got that UFC offer, and you never know if it's going to come again. So he went.
Offer depending on how low they offered him, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't that good of a deal. Daniel brings up a great point as well. Situation of Seo Hee-ham too, being stuck in Korea. She couldn't fight in Japan because of just the crazy things between those two countries when it came to the restrictions. So now she's in she's in one.
ONE FC also offered her 3 times the money, and she's near the end of her career, and she was like, "Oh, excuse me, yes, I will gladly take 6 figures for these fights."
Oh, I don't blame her in that case. Yeah. But it sounded like she really wanted that Hamazaki rematch at least before she went.
Yeah, she did. But I mean, I feel bad for Ham Sohee because her management stole money from her for most of her career.
Oh yes.
And she didn't realize it until very late in her career. I mean, they were stealing like 50% of her money, and it was a crazy amount. And so when ONE FC came and offered her what Sakakibara said was like 3 times what they were offering, I mean, you can't be mad at her. You're like, yeah, go get paid. You've been fighting your entire career. Get some money to retire with.
Oh, absolutely. But do you think she would have gone to ONE FC as quickly as she did had the not pandemic happened and just all these crazy restrictions and all that stuff?
Yeah, because I think she actually signed with them before. They just didn't announce it for a long time.
Yeah, that was weird because I remember that.
ONE FC kind of like been bungling this tournament a little bit with the way that they've been promoting it. But I think she signed because she never had a contract with Rising. Her contracts were with Road FC, and Road FC was kind of loaning her out to Rizin.
Yeah.
And once the Road FC contract expired, because I think what happened is when she found out her managers were stealing her money, she became hyper aware of her money. And so then she hired, I think her brother-in-law is her coach at Team Mad. Her brother-in-law runs Team Mad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he kind of took over. And so I think now she's very aware, like she's no longer blissfully ignorant of the financial situation. And so when ONE FC was like, hey, we'll pay you, because I think she was getting $30,000 a Rizin fight. And I think Sakakibara said 3 times. So it's like essentially $100,000 to fight for ONE FC. She was like, yeah. Plus she also said she wants to fight fighters she hasn't fought before. And outside of the Hamasaki appearance, she's fought everybody in Japan.
That's true.
So that's another benefit that ONE FC had. Plus, the tournament's going to be cool, be super exciting. So I'm looking forward to the ONE FC tournament as well.
I think it's tailor made for her to win. Or isn't Hirata also in the tournament?
She is.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, is that they want Hirata versus Ham, kind of like the old school versus the new school final. And listen, this is one. So if they want that fight to happen, they'll make it happen, even if it doesn't.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't work out that way.
They had like this, just like a little rant. They had like the Indian girl Ritu Ferret in the tournament. Yeah. And then they had her fight win like 2 weeks before the tournament's supposed to happen, and she lost. I'm like, why would you have one of your participants fight in another fight before the tournament starts? Now they had to remove her and replace her with someone.
See, that's the thing, is that one will put on these great fights, and then when I hear what some of the shit they do, It's
That's so
like
sketchy.
I can't support promotion that like, you know, will change decisions of fights just because they don't. That's not what they wanted to have. It's like that.
Oh, what?
It's very, and you know the random rules about suplexes and slams. You know,
Oh,
oh,
the very selective application of that rule as well.
and also I
The
think that's
fighters they like are allowed to suplex.
yeah, and you know it's I you know, hey, but you know what? They got Gordon Ryan. I always said if Rizin wanted to break out to get press in America, hire Gordon Ryan. One beat them to it. So
Well,
uh,
one's also developed a very good kickboxing part of their promotion.
they should just be a kickboxing promotion at this point
Yeah,
because their kickboxing is made the best, the most intriguing thing because they got Rotang,
yeah.
they got
Nikki, they have Nikki, don't they?
yeah
They
they
have
got
Andy Sauer. They have everybody.
yeah
But
John Wei Parr as well.
exactly. I just worry that Angela Lee is so much bigger than Ham Sohee that might be an issue. But that'll be a cross that bridge when they get to it.
Exactly. Speaking of big, we're gonna have one opponent who's bigger than the star of this fight, and I'm not so sure what to really say about this fight. It's a confusing fight. I do have the rules in front of me, so I'll read them. This is Tenshin Nasukawa taking on potentially 3 opponents in a kick.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not kickboxing. It's
The
boxing.
the Hiroya fight is a boxing match, correct?
Okay, so here's what I have here. It says the rules of the special match are as follows: special standing bout, no kicks, Superman punch, spinning back fists allowed. 3 minutes, 1 round per opponent. 3 knockdowns, 1 round. If tension should suffer a stoppage, the fight is over. Example given: loss versus Hiroya. He will not face X. So if he loses against Osaki, which is not going to happen, he will fight Hiroya or he won't fight X. So I have here that it looks like that they're not allowing kicks.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
no
for
kicks
some
for any of
reason
them.
thought the first round might have been a kickboxing fight round,
They
but
may
you probably know more than me.
This is what the press release says, and you know what? They
Yeah.
might even change the rule. I thought the Shibatar Hiroya thing was first round MMA fight, second round kickboxing
One of the
fight,
mixed rules
and
fights.
then a third round where it was and then they had a third round, which I didn't know that it was only 2 rounds. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they may even change this the day of. Who knows?
Yeah.
What do you think? Obviously, okay. So Tenshin Chakaru was supposed to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for a multitude of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's a I don't know if that fight's. I think that's going to be the Khabib, Tony, of this
Yeah.
of kickboxing. I don't think that fight's ever going to happen. I'm just going to say it right now.
Well, especially if tension moves to boxing.
Yeah, and we don't know how long Takaru is going to take. And K1, listen, like I said, we tried to do stuff with K1 before. They're horrible to work with, and Nakamura can just decide, you know what, I don't want to work with Rise anymore. I want to still, I'm just going to still have my guys never do Rising things. So that may happen. I have no idea. So we got the gauntlets. We got the MMA gauntlet or the kickbox or the boxing gauntlet. And yeah, tension's going to boxing. That's no secrets. What I don't know. What do you have to say about this match? These matches.
They had to have tension on the card, or else it wouldn't be on Fuji TV.
Yeah.
Because Fuji TV is not going to just put one fight on, and they're trying to get as much attention as possible. And it's short notice enough that they couldn't make it like a legitimate big fight for tension, because they wouldn't have had time to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rising also seems to be kind of obsessed with like molding the fight aspect with entertainment value as well. And so I think they're trying to do something to get a lot of attention, and this will get a lot of attention, which I don't really have a guess on who Mr. X is going to be, but I think Mr. X is going to be someone very famous so that it boosts Fuji TV numbers, gets a lot of attention. It might not be someone who's like a talented fighter, but it will be someone who's like, I mean, you've all seen probably the videos where like Rana fought 3 guys and like Ronda Rousey fought 3 guys in Japan.
Yes.
I think it'll be someone with like a basic fight skill. Maybe they were like a taekwondo or like a kickboxer, but maybe like a famous comedian, like an actor, like a baseball player, someone famous. I think will be Mr. X, or like an older retired fighter.
Let's see. Christian, he had 2 2 predictions. Says for the round, if it ain't Takaru, and I don't think it's gonna be Takaru. I don't think that's not.
There's no way that K1 lets Takeru come in for that.
As for Mr. X, he says it's gotta be Shibatar.
I think that's the obvious guess, but I don't think they're gonna do it.
Now I know that Shibatar, he came out and said something that like he tried to, like that he and Rising couldn't come to some sort of agreement or something for the Tokyo Dome show. He says,
Shimitar said, I don't know about that, but I know he said in the past he doesn't want to fight too many times. He wants it to be special when he fights.
yeah, that was it. Here's the thing though. He's a pro wrestler. This is a guy who knows how to work a crowd. So
Yeah.
he could just be BSing for all we know.
He's also very smart. I
Oh,
mean, they
absolutely.
made it look like his last fight. They made it look like it was like this whole like randomly thing where he showed up to Rising, kind of demanded it, but you actually found out like no, he's friends with the Asakura brothers. And they went through management. They set the whole thing up, and then they filmed all this stuff to make it look like that. So he's intelligent. He makes a lot of money on YouTube. And if you remember in the last fight, when he came to the ring, he was surrounded by two famous Japanese YouTubers.
Mhm.
One of them's a girl. She actually has been, I think she's going to be one of the round girls for this event.
Oh yeah.
And so if she's there, then it makes sense that he might be there. But I think he's so much bigger than Tenshin. And I think they want somebody really famous to get a lot of attention. And he's not like, he isn't like Japan common knowledge famous.
Okay.
He's like people that know Rising know who he is. People that watch YouTube know who he is. But I think they want someone like next level famous. So I think they want like a famous comedian, or they want like a former retired athlete, or like get really crazy with it. Bring like someone like Masato in and have them do like an exhibition boxing round.
So RGIP says in the chat, he says Shibatar or Yuta Kubo. Why does that name sound so familiar? Yuta Kubo. He also said Shibatar made a video about Tenshin today.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, Shibatar is like the obvious pick, but I feel like it's too obvious almost.
The size difference would be fascinating. It would just from a freak show fight perspective. I would just like to see it. I mean,
so we got Shita Kubo is like a former K1 guy. That means 33. Yeah.
But again, I think you said it best. I think it has to be somebody who's famous.
Yeah.
Someone who brings in TV ratings. I don't know if Yuta Kubo can do that. So obviously, it comes down to being the only person I could think of as an actor or comedian has to be Gact.
That's not going to happen, but that'd be hilarious. That'd be absolutely hilarious. I think Gact doing commentary. I know Gact likes doing commentary. I think Gact actually commentated the Tenshin Mayweather fight.
That's what I'm thinking. Is that he commentated by apparently like he said he like came out publicly like I didn't like doing the commentary, all that stuff. So maybe now this is Shikakibara's mad scientist idea. We can't have Gact as a commentary again. How about we have him in a Tenshin boxing match?
So my hilarious idea would be to have him fight Rena because they've been friends. Rena trained him when he was young, but that would never happen because that'd just be terrible to watch Rena get abused. But also, I'm not saying this is the fight that's going to happen, but it is there is some involvement. If you watch, okay, so Logan Paul or Jake Paul, I don't know which one. There's a picture of them on Twitter that they uploaded of them boxing with Rising boxing gloves on.
Yes.
Sakakibara's video ended with a sneak preview that he met with the Paul brothers when he was in Florida.
Yes.
And that's going to be the subject of the next video. Now, I think they're way too big for Tenshin to fight. So I don't think that they'd be involved. But I think Sakakibara is obsessed with YouTubers right now. So think like, and people are going to get views. So think like big YouTuber, think actor, former really famous champion. Because I was like talking to my wife about it. I was like, do you think it might be Gomi? Like do a boxing match like Gomi? And she was like, no, Gomi's not famous enough. It's going to be someone bigger. It's going to be someone super famous.
So you see, if it was, I would say Paul. Problem is though, we saw them both at the show on Sunday. Yeah. They would have had their quarantine in Japan by now. If one of the Paul brothers was conspicuously absent, I would be like, okay, it's gotta be Paul. Also, I probably think they want to promote that. I think that's something.
Yeah, that's one other thing too. It's like that's what makes me. That's the strength to the Shibatar argument. Is if it was someone super famous, you'd think they'd want to promote it. But
yeah.
But also, does Fuji TV want like shock value? They want people being like, holy shit, this person's fighting Tenshin.
And like people call
turn to Channel 5. Yeah.
People online are like, I did see one other possibility since we have Hiroya. What about Taiga?
I've seen one of my friends actually suggested Taiga because it's kind of a win-win.
Taiga's wanted that Tenshin fight for so long. And this might be the one and only time he would have he might. So, and plus we got Hiroya in there. I don't know. Is it possible that they just got the
So
two?
I just want to say, like, before the fight happened with Shibatar, when it was revealed that Hiroya was Mr. X, I was like super disappointed. I was like, when it was happening, I was like, oh, but then the fight was awesome, so I was happy it happened.
Yes.
But it, like, I think everyone was just like, Hiroya, like that's not a big surprise. So, I mean, Taiga would be cool. I just don't think it's worth, like, why hide Taiga for a week? Why not just tell it up front?
It's a weird. It's like so with the Hiroya Shibatar thing. So it's kind of like Hiroya comes out, and then with this one, it's kind of like I don't know. It's almost setting up for disappointment unless it's something like if it's like gacked, if it's gacked and it's just like something so absurd, or I don't know. One of the guys from Gaki no Tsukai. I don't know. Jose. If it's Jose from Gaki no Sakai coming out there with like just like these giant 16-inch gloves, look, it's almost a weird that's the thing is that like this is very pro wrestling, but this is where like the pro wrestling and MMA thing like kind of don't go hand in hand because the whole thing is that you want people to tune in, and you set yourself up for disappointment of people turning off if it is I don't want to crap on Yuta Kubo, but listen, I don't think people in Japan are gonna turn the channels to Fuji to see Yuta Kubo take on Tenshin in a unannounced or barely announced match.
Yeah, because if it's not someone that's big, why hide it? Is my thing. It only worked with the Shibatar fight because the Shibatar fight wasn't the main event.
Yeah,
they weren't gambling on that fight to bring in a bunch of views. It was like a gamble they did, and it worked out.
Yeah, oh no, it worked. It's like the polar opposite of like the Floyd Mayweather Paul fight, where like okay, that's how you book a crazy exhibition match.
But this fight's different because this fight is essentially the most famous. Mikuru is very famous as well, but Tenshin's very famous, and so it's kind of hard to build around a surprise.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess in that case, I say Bob Sapp. I have no idea who to pick. Haitian says Shibatar will not make it due to his prior commitment. He should be at somewhere far from Tokyo on that day to attend a pachinko event. So maybe, maybe it's not.
He does love pachinko.
I don't know. Bob Sapp, gacked. It's. I don't know. I don't know who. It's. I don't know. Maybe it's his dad. Maybe it's Tenshin's dad.
Maybe
maybe it's Tenshin's sister. It's sister Nasukawa.
Maybe they roll Naoya Inoue out and have his first boxing.
What would happen? Do you think what would happen? I think kickboxing J-Kick fans would like. I think they would melt. I think they would all be implode. I think there would be it's like the Star Wars. The sounds of a million screams all became silent, or whatever it was that Obi-Wan said. If that happens. Yeah. When Alderaan got obliterated, I think if it's Naoya Inoue, oh boy, I don't want to be on social media, Japanese or English, if that happens. But like in terms of the fight itself, do you expect what do you think about Koki Ozaki? Koki Ozaki's kind of like he's a good fighter, champion in his respective organizations, but listen, not on Tenshin's level. I think it's fair to say. I think Tenshin can easily finish him.
It's also an exhibition, so you got to wonder like how serious are these guys going into this? Like, is this just like let's just have fun, mess around, or is Tenshin trying to actually kill these people?
I think Tenshin's going to actually try to kill these people. We saw the Mayweather fight; he took it seriously. Mayweather's just kind of like there smiling. He got that one shot at Mayweather. Like Mayweather's like, okay, you know what? Fun's over. I'm taking my $9 million home, $9 million home with me, and knocking you out as quick as he did. So I think this is a legitimate. Like mixed custom match. I don't.
How long is each round? Is each round 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
Let me go. I think they said 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 1 round per opponent.
Okay.
Hiroya, listen, Tryhard has been. Listen, I don't know what to say about Tryhard. Taiga's been doing good.
I thought Hiroya was essentially retired, so I was kind of.
Yeah, and listen, he got knocked down by Shibatar. That was a legit knockdown. That wasn't pro wrestling or anything. He legit knocked him down.
Shibatar knocked his teeth out.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what Hiroya like. If Tenshin knocks out if 135, 140 pound Tenshin knocks out 160 pound Hiroya, I don't know. I think if he's not retired, then he's got to retire.
I mean, but
Like very
30
on this.
pound weight advantage is so big, though.
I know, but I know it's Hiroya we're talking
Yeah,
about. Masato too. Imagine if X is Masato. He
that'd be
comes
nuts.
out with
That'd be huge.
that
That'd be
maybe.
absolutely nuts. I just don't see why Masato would do it though. Masato like doesn't need the money.
Yeah, no, but I feel like you kind of have to just go like balls crazy with this. It has to
Oh
be
yeah,
just something that just like the audience will like audibly like go like ooh, or
yeah.
like just something. Like I'm intrigued who X is. I don't know how like, but like in terms of this fight, are you expecting anything from Tension after this fight? Do you think he's gonna announce like this is my last thing for Rizin? I'm going into boxing now full time. Is there anything of that sort of thing being talked about?
I think before he goes to boxing, he'll do one more fight with Rise, and so I think this might be his last thing with Ryzen. But I think
Mm.
he'll. I think did he say he wants to go to boxing next year? Right?
Yeah, I think he wants to go. I think it might be sooner, especially with how Japan is. I think he wants
Yeah.
to stick in Japan. He wants to stay in. He wants to, I guess, go start doing stuff in America as quickly as possible.
So I think he'll have like a retirement bout at Rise, not Rising, but the kickboxing promotion that he's from, and then I think he'll switch over to boxing pretty quickly, based off of what he's been saying.
So, do you think Takaru Tension fight's dead?
Yes.
I am unfortunately on that in that ballpark as well. And this is what Chris says about the Tenshin Nasukawa fight challenge. He'll deal with Ozaki in the kickboxing round. Again, I don't think it's a kickboxing round, at least as far as what the press release says. And throw a spinning back fist against Hiroya in the boxing round. As for the third round, as he said, if it's not Takaru, it's got to be Shibata in some sort of shoot wrestling or MMA exhibition. Other than that, I hope that Tenshin comes out of this unscathed, and he probably will. Tenshin
Yeah.
is Tench becoming very cognizant of his career at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's his management, his dad, or whatever, but ever since that Mayweather fight, he definitely has seemed to have taken a different approach to how he takes his fights, which fights he takes. Would you say that, Charles?
Um. Well, man, I don't even think his dad. But after the fight was like, "Oh, my son's first KO loss was to Mayweather. Not bad." So I don't think he took that much negative from Mayweather. I mean, he fought the best boxer in the world and landed a couple good strikes. I mean, I think he actually went a little too hard in the first round, and Mayweather was like, "Oh, this guy's trying to hurt me. I'm just going to finish it now."
Mm-hmm.
Where if he had been more like one of the Paul brothers, he would have just carried him for the fight and then took his $9 million and went home.
I unfortunately no. Yeah, that's the thing. Is that well, that's the thing. Tension comes into win fights. He isn't.
Yeah,
He's not getting paid by the round. He's in there to. He saw this opportunity with the Mayweather fight, and
yeah,
all on him. He took
swung for the
it
fences.
exactly, and as he should. There was no BS, no pro wrestling involved. It may have been an exhibition, but it was definitely much more of a competitive fight than the
Yeah,
Paul Mayweather fight. And now, speaking of a competitive main event, we got Mikuru Azakura, Kleber Koike, taking presumably number one contenders match for the featherweight championship for this.
this fight actually kind of surprised me. I didn't think that Mikado would have won this fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mikuru is at a weird cross point where like I don't think he wants to be doing MMA full time like soon. I think he wants to do the YouTube stuff. He's got a huge following as
Mm-hmm.
it's known. I don't see his career as an MMA fighter going that much longer, in my personal opinion. I'll be surprised if he does. What do you think about that, Charles?
Well, I mean, I think it just depends on whether or not he feels his YouTube following is connected to his fighting career, and that if he stops fighting, if it'll dwindle. I don't think it is, because his YouTube channel is like obscenely large. I think he has like over 2 million followers.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 million subscribers, and there's no way those people are all watching Rising, or else Rising's YouTube videos would be much higher as well.
Well, at least in fairness, relative to that, his fights, Kai's are the fights that get the most views on the
Yeah,
Rising YouTube channels when they're
yeah.
uploaded. So there is at least some sort of crossover, I think, on the
Yeah, but
social media sphere.
I think he's kind of like Yachi, where I don't think his YouTube fame is dependent on him winning.
Hmm.
I think that there's interested in other aspects of him, but I was thinking that they would make the Hasegawa fight because they were kind of talking back and forth with each other
Oh, that would be such.
on Twitter a lot, and that there's a good beef going there, and he's a popular fighter down in Osaka, so I thought that might have been the way they would go, but it seems Mikuru wants to do a title fight, and Kleber to him was the quickest way to do that. But I think Kleber is an extremely dangerous opponent for him, and I actually think Kleber is going to win.
Okay, so do you think this is a fight that Mikuru had any say in who do you want to fight? Or do you think this is all Rizin trying to?
I think he had to say he's famous enough that he could say no.
And that fight that you mentioned, Hasegawa, was it Hasegawa? Is the name?
The guy with tattoos from Osaka is it?
Yeah, not Hasegawa.
Hagiwara.
Hagiwara. Sorry, why am I saying
Hagiwara? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get him. I for some reason I always forget his name, and I want to say Hasegawa, but it's Hagiwara.
Now I was thinking, isn't Hagiwara and isn't he a much bigger fighter? Ken Hasegawa, I was thinking of Kyohei Hagiwara, the underground emperor.
I apologize. I get them mixed up every now and then in my mind.
It happens.
But Hagiwara and Hagiwara was calling out Mikuru on Twitter, and Mikuru was essentially like, "Hey, the last guy you beat wasn't even an MMA fighter. He was just a kickboxer. Like, get some real fights, and then maybe we'll talk."
So actually, RGIP said something interesting. It said that Mikuru was saying he's planning to retire when he becomes 30. And let's see, right now he's 28, so he's got about 2 more years.
Yeah, a lot of fighters have said that.
Yes. But I think Mikuru does. I think that's a little bit different in his case because he's got something to fall back on. He's got a very popular YouTube channel. I'm sure he makes good money with that. Probably sponsors doing.
Well, I'd imagine he makes more money from YouTube than he does from Rising.
Mm-hmm. And he's doing collabs with other big Japanese YouTubers who I don't know their names, but they're famous in Japan. So that's enough. And he came out with didn't he? I think for the Saito fight, he came out with 2 of them. I think.
It was Shibatar that came out with the 2 YouTubers.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sorry, it was Shibatar.
But Mikuru is friends with Shibatar, and Mikuru is actually the one that I think was the guy that got Shibatar into Rizin.
Okay, gotcha. So you pick Kleber to win. I'm curious to know why Kleber.
I mean, Mikuru acts like he's kind of like this fighting sage sometimes, but I mean, Kleber has so much experience. It's kind of funny because if you didn't know who he was, when Satoshi Sozo was like, "This is my friend Kleber, give him a fight in Rising," you would think he was 1-0, and then you're like, "Oh, he's got 30 fights, and he's former KSW champion." It's just
it was funny the way that Satoshi introduced was and they did the same thing with Yamaniha. It was
you'd think they'd never fought before.
And then you look him up oh, he's choked down all of his opponents.
Yeah, and so it's just Koike has, what has he got? He's got 33 fights. So it's Mikuru isn't going to bring anything that he hasn't seen before. And the last guy that Koike lost to is a super stud who's in the UFC now. Koike doesn't lose. I mean, there's a way to beat Koike. If you look at his KSW fights, there's a clear kind of cut way to beat him. And I just don't think Mikuru has the skill set to beat him. And if it goes to the ground, we've never really seen Mikuru fight on the ground that much before.
Mm-hmm.
But based off the fact that he's from the outsider and all of his wins are essentially by knockout, I would say it's fair to say that Kleber has a significant advantage on the ground.
Okay, so here's I'll put some context behind that. So if you remember the Mikuru fight against Dotbek, from I think it was Kazakhstan that Dotbek was from. Mikuru had him in an arm triangle choke for maybe a good 2 minutes until the round ended, and he couldn't finish with that. You switched him out of Kleber. Kleber immediately, as soon as he gets that arm triangle choke, so Dotbek would have been out or tapping out within 10 seconds.
He's so terrifying on the ground because you can see how excited he is because he knows that the guy hasn't tapped yet, the ref hasn't stopped yet, but he knows it's over. He's cheering as it's happening because he's oh, they're not getting out of this. And that only comes with that 10,000 hours of expertise that you talk about.
Yeah.
Kleber trains with Souza and Yamaniha, so a bunch of really good grapplers trained together, and he's got a ton of experience, and he's riding a huge momentum going into this fight. So he's got to feel super confident going into this.
Oh, yeah. The other thing is also if Satoshi does win, I'm sure that also gives a morale boost to Kleber.
Yeah.
I don't know. Has there ever been? I'd be interested to know like to look at a Rizin card or a deep card, just like all these cards where like teammates fight
Yeah.
on the same card. Like if one loses, does the other guy lose as well? And
That'd be an
something like that.
interesting statistic to look at. Yeah.
I would really like to see something like that. There's got to be somebody who has more time than us to do something like that. But I'd be very interested to see something like that. But well, barring that, the question is though. Again, we've mentioned fights start on the feet. I
Mm-hmm.
think Mikuru has a higher chance of the longer stays on the feet knocking out Kleber. I haven't, Saito was able to take down Mikuru a few times, but really wasn't able to do that much. Do you think that Mikuru though will come to this fight, knowing that listen, I can't go to ground this guy. It has to be all on the feet or I'm done for.
Well, I think he knows that. I mean, Mikuru has a very high fight IQ.
Mm-hmm.
One of his strong points is actually his fight IQ, I'd say. And the issue though is, I mean, tell me, how much do you think they're training the same amount as each other, or do you think Mikuru spends a little bit more time on his YouTube videos and sponsorships?
I think especially after that Saito fight, I think here's the and he fought Dominator after that. And listen, Dominator is a good fighter, but he's not on the same level as Mikuru. I think even with Mikuru is like injured or come in like half-assed, and that's just how high level of fighter he is. And I think that's the same thing as like Tenshin. Tenshin cannot train for a fight that's in Rise and still get a first round knockout. But with in terms of this fight, I would hope he's taking it seriously. If he thinks that Kleber is going to be an easy walk in the park, I think that Mikuru is very wrong about that, in my personal opinion.
Mikuru is
look at that, 23 submissions, by the way, 23 submissions is
insane.
And he choked out Agawan first time Agawan was ever finished. He's a guy who's and that's the thing as well, is that like it was even like, so he clipped Agawan. Agawan looked like he was trying to go for a takedown, and just the quickness that he was able to lock that in. Like other fighters maybe would have had to adjust or something. It's almost like it was like a puzzle, a perfectly fit puzzle, and Agawan went right into it and it connected. And that's the thing, is Mikuru. Are we going to see Mikuru the same? Like, are we going to see the wild brawling Mikuru that we kind of got when he first started rising? Or are we going to see the more tentative fighter that we saw in the Saito fight, or maybe the more like a Desical fight that he saw? And I think that's also when Mikuru thinks a fighter is on his level. If he doesn't think some guy's on his level, I think he'll just kind of it's kind of like I guess you could say like BJ Penn. When BJ Penn didn't think some fighter was on his level, he wouldn't train. He would be eating hot dogs and beer and all that stuff, and he would not train, but he would still win. He would.
What is it? The old people are always saying like motivated BJ.
Motivated BJ Penn, yeah. Sean Shirk BJ versus BJ, like that, or Matt Hughes too versus BJ.
But C-level Kane motivated BJ.
Yeah, but then when he fought against some of those lower fighters in UFC,
get bored, no motivation.
Do you think? I mean, if Mikuru comes in like that, he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna last long.
I was just looking through it. I mean, has Kleber ever been knocked out?
I believe he's been knocked out. Let me double check on that. He does have 2 KOs, but listen, I don't. Kleber knocking out Mikuru, I think, is the same amount of statistically happening as Watanabe knocking out Kai.
It's kind of funny to see that Kleber lost by an armbar.
But that's it's like Yuki Matoya, like kind of like at the beginning of his career, but then funnily enough, near the end, Matoya got submitted by some guys who were just big, but better than him at later in his career, Inoue and Mix. Well, what do you think the odds are that Mikuru can submit Koike at any, if there's any?
The only way he can submit Koike is if he essentially, it's like when John Fitch got knocked out in World Series of Fighting, not knocked out, submitted, where the guy essentially knocked him out and then put him in a chokehold and then choked him unconscious. Like, Mikuru has to knock him out and then choke him out.
So here's an interesting statistic, is that Koike has never lost by knockout. He's lost by decision, DQ, submission, but never has been knocked out. And I'm guessing he's probably been
with 30 with over 30 fights, have never been knocked out. It's pretty impressive.
And I'm guessing that he's probably has been knocked down. I mean, you don't have 30 fights and not be knocked down unless you're Floyd Mayweather. Um, it's an intriguing fight, and
Well, I love a striker versus grappler match. I love the classic clash of styles.
I do too. It's very hard because part of me wants to say that I think that Miku is going to come into this fight and we're going to get that old Miku that we saw before the Saito fight, before he started becoming a YouTube hottie. I don't know, but then Koike is just, he is so good at his grappling. I would almost say I would say that Clever has a better chance of beating Miku than I think Satoshi has beating Tofik.
Well, I agree with that.
Oh god, but what about this? Do you think this fight can go to a decision? Do you think that Miku can just negate all of Koike's grappling and just keep on the feet for 3 rounds entirely?
Yeah, I think it can go to a decision, but I think it would go to a decision more in the regards that like Koike can't take Miku down for some reason, so they strike the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't see it. I see it Koike either getting finished trying to get it down or just consistently trying to get it down. Like he's going to try to get it down to the ground.
And do you think that could affect, because usually as a round goes on, unless you're Ogikubo, the more you try for a takedown, the more tired you get, the weaker you get, and then they just become kind of like half-ass takedowns. And then if he tries to go for a half-ass takedown like Majima did against Saito, he's liable to get his face kicked in, Koike.
Yeah, but I mean, you also got to like wonder which Mikuru is showing up. Like, is this Mikuru that fought Saito who only fights hard at the very end of the fight when he like remembers it's a fight, or is it the guy that used to go out and brawl? I mean, I've always kind of thought that Kai was the more physically gifted of the two.
Yeah.
But Mikuru seems to have a good fight IQ. He just doesn't have like the physical attributes of Kai.
He also seems to be a great coach as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, with the whole I call it the Mikuru contender series, with the 3 fighters that he has that are in deep. Yeah. I don't know. They aren't doing that. They aren't doing as well as they initially probably were hoping to do.
Well, you can only coach someone so well. It still depends on the athlete's ability.
At least it seems to be that like Mikuru and Kai can coach each other very well. At least
he's very good at coaching Kai and helping him, but I think he's better suited for that. I think Kai is the better actual fighter. But
definitely.
Koike is, the experience gap between them is just so massive to me. And Koike has only lost against like really good fighters.
Mm-hmm. And has only been finished once.
Yeah, by an armbar, which isn't going to happen in this fight.
Imagine that Mikuru gets a flying armbar on Koike.
I mean, Koike just seems so motivated. Like when Satoshi win their fights, they seem so motivated to keep winning.
Did you see the VTR, not the VTR, but the confessions video that they did on Koike, where it's talking about time in Brazil and coming to Japan, and then just like growing up and like finding the bonsai gym, and it's a very cool story. He
was talking about like how difficult it was to be half Brazilian, half Japanese.
Yeah, and also probably learning Japanese on the fly as well, because I'm pretty sure that he didn't know Japanese when he came to Japan. He's probably
his Japanese is still like not perfect. I think he came to Japan when he was like 14 or something.
Oh yeah. They showed that picture with him, and I think it was the Souza brothers, and like he's got like the spiky hair or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the hungry fighter versus the fighter resting on his laurels almost. If that is the Miku that we see. Shin has a really interesting comment here. He says that recently Miku hired one of the most talented jiu-jitsu fighters, Kenta Iwamoto, who I think has actually fought in Quintet, I think, if I recognize that name correctly, who is a world-class jiu-jitsu fighter, and he's been training with him since last month. That's good and all, but there's a difference between training with a black belt in jiu-jitsu for 1 month versus training with high-level black belts for, I don't know how long it's been, 10 years, 15 years at Bonsai.
But you just get flashbacks of like Conor McGregor training with Dylan Davis and all that stuff, like Dylan Davis, whatever. It's like you're not gonna be able to catch up to Khabib's wrestling, and you're not going to be able to catch up to Kleber's grappling because, I mean, I'm fairly positive Kleber spends most of his time training on his grappling. He hangs out with a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's all he does. And his jiu-jitsu is incredibly high level. Like 1 month to me also seems like a very short amount of time to try to train for that.
Oh yeah. Well, listen. Yeah, he might know some heel hook defense, for the fight. But listen, if Kleber gets an anaconda choke, rear naked, listen, there's no 1 month of jiu-jitsu training ain't going to change
Plus,
anything.
is that even enough time to like commit that stuff to muscle memory and like
Oh,
make
exactly.
it an instinctual action?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A part of me feels that Mikuru that's what Rizin wants. I think they want Mikuru to win this.
Oh, of course. They want both Asakura brothers to win.
But I just, I'm Christian, I think, says it best here. Kleber over Mikuru via first or second round submission. I know the general consensus wants Mikuru to win because of his popularity that'll bring the Rizin, but still, if you see the Rizin Confessions episode, you'd understand the struggle that Kleber had to deal with the moment he arrived in that country. Plus, considering that he's a former KSW champion, and he thinks that him and Saito has a nice ring to it. And I think that's another intriguing matchup. Do we want to see Mikuru and Saito again? I think Mikuru wants that matchup more than.
I would like to see that again because I think Mikuru would go about it quite differently.
Yeah, but I think if Kleber wins, I am more intrigued by the Kleber fights.
Just of course, yeah, that's the fight you have to make if Kleber wins. But I would like to see Mikuru and Saito fight again sometime down the road.
Oh yeah,
because I think Mikuru learned something or figured something out near the end of the fight, and I'd like to see what he does with that. From the very beginning of the next
who knows
fight.
if Vugar wins? Maybe it'll be Vugar versus Saito, and then we have Vugar as a champion, and then Kleber versus Vugar, which I think that's like that match blows my mind.
That'd be crazy, right? Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a crazy fight. I always think Vugar versus Mikuru is a fight to make. Is an interesting fight. I think the I'm about to say Hasegawa. Excuse me.
Hagiwara,
fight. Listen, I think that guy is also not someone to sleep on. He's got a personality. He stands out.
Super popular too. He's super popular.
Yeah, I love his shit talking. I love that he just says like, he's like telling Ren Hiramoto, I think you're a shit fighter. He's telling a former K1 champion that like right to his face. He
was right though.
Oh, yeah. He was right, but the way that he has no problem shitting on people, like that's so rare. Because like when I get the Rizin press releases, all the comments are like, "Hi, my name is so and so. I'll be fighting at Rizin. Yes, please support me. I hope my opponent and I will put on a good fight." And it's like, okay, one fighter says that, that's cool. When 10 fighters are saying that, it's like, come the fuck on. Think of something different.
I think I was actually talking to Stuart Fulton a couple of weeks ago, and he's kind of in charge of PR sometimes at Pancrase.
Yeah.
He was telling me that he tells them to be like, don't say like the typical, like, I'm gonna do my best, please support me. Like, say something actually interesting that like the media can use. Like, like if you all say the same thing, they can't write an article.
Exactly. Yeah. No. When I get the releases and when Isao Kobayashi and Nakajima are kind of like saying almost the same thing, just like but like differently, it's like it's great that you have respect for your opponent, but like if you both have respect for your opponent, you both saying that you hope that you do well and you hope that you look strong, it doesn't sell.
You don't even have to be disrespectful. Just like show some aspect of your personality, or like talk about anything. Like talk about like, oh, like with Nakajima, I'd be like, I just had a kid with my son. I just had a child born. I'm super motivated. Like say that kind of stuff. Don't just be like, I'm gonna do my best.
Well, that's also the reason why. That's why I love talking to the fighters. I always notice this: the fighters who have like tattoos always seem to have more personality than the ones that don't have tattoos. They seem I don't know if that's because they just have a rebellious attitude just because they got tattoos in a country that frowns upon that. But yeah, when we talked to Hagiwara, oh yeah, he was talking shit on Ashita when they had their match. What is it? Was it Ishida? But Hiramoto, obviously, you know what Hiramoto always says. But yeah, it seems like the fighters that always have the tattoos are the ones that have no problem talking shit. But that brings it end. That brings it end to this card. So 3 fights that you're looking forward to the most, Charles.
Oh, 3 fights looking forward to the most. Naoki Inoue versus Ishiwatari, Koike Mikuru, and I'm not going to say Kai Asakura because I expect that to kind of be a blowout. So I'll go with Tofik versus Satoshi.
Okay, yeah, I definitely have to go with Tofik Satoshi, um, Ishwatari Inoue, and then I guess just by proxy, I'm intrigued by who Mr. X will be. I am.
Yeah.
I would have to say that fight. I'm not looking forward to that fight. Really, it is just there's nothing to gain from watching it.
Mhm.
Unless it's again, it's got to be something crazy. But like I am like
Right.
I wonder who Ryzen is hiding. Like they literally. I think Sakakibara said that they thought of this a week ago, and so like
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what was able to come within a week and who they got like last minute to like I don't know some celebrity be like, hey, can you come to our show at the Tokyo Dome?
Just,
On like 1 week's notice.
just have Takada go out there and Takada fights.
He has to wear the diaper. He has to wear the
Yes.
not the diaper. He has to
The-
come out with that, and he has to hit the drum before he puts on the gloves. Or you know, what? If he puts on the pink trunks, I will scream. If he comes out and fights Tenshin with
yeah.
with the old school WFI stuff, oh boy.
Yeah.
I know some people that would actually like would have a heart attack, like a good heart attack if Takada came out to fight him.
I mean, it's got to. I mean, I'm trying not to think about it too much because I don't want to build it up in my mind. Because I mean, if it's Shibatara, that seems like it would kind of be a letdown. But I mean, I like Shibatara, so I'll be excited. So I don't want to like build it up too much in my mind because it's like I want to be genuinely surprised by it. But if I think it's gonna be like Masato and someone else comes out, I might be disappointed. But I'm gonna be there in person, and so I'm super excited. And I think when it's revealed, the crowd will go nuts, even though they're not supposed to go nuts. And I think everyone will like it at home.
One of my friends, we were talking about this yesterday. He said something. It's very stupid, but like like you know, we were talking about Gact or like Masato. He says it should be every member of AKB48.
That'd be funny. I was laughing. I was having a similar thought. I'm like, they should just get Rena, Erika Kamamura, and like every female kickboxer that, and like Saya Ito, all who trained with Tenshin when he was a kid. And be like, they used to beat you up when you were a kid, but now you're grown up, but now you get to fight all three of them.
Do you think? Well, let's just say if okay, so they're saying Mr. X, so I'm assuming that it is going to be a man. If it is, you know, if it happens to be Reina, if it was Reina, do you think the audience would be kind of like shocked we're about to see a man beat up a woman?
A snuff film.
Yeah, we're about to see a snuff film.
What we really should have is it should be Kana Asakura and the ring girl that he cheated on her with. And they should have a tag match where they both get to beat up Tenshin for cheating on Kana.
Oh my! I actually noticed there is no women's book on this card. I was really surprised.
Yeah, there's none. Yeah.
So maybe imagine if it was Kana. You hear Kana's yeah, and then you see her come out of the boxing gloves. She's got the Ronda Rousey look.
Yeah, exactly.
Death stare. Oh my god! Okay. Now I'm really setting myself up for disappointment. Now I really want. I really want that. Now it's gotta be Kana or nobody else. You've officially set it up. Now it can't be. I like. It can't be Shibatara. It can't be Gak. Can't be Masato. It's gotta be Kana Asakura.
Or she comes out with like some huge guy, and she's like the pro wrestling style manager, like the just on the outside of the ring with the chair and hits Tenshin or something.
Oh, maybe it's yeah, that's how Bob Sapp. Maybe Bob Sapp is her she's seconding Bob Sapp.
Her muscle. She comes out with the literal APA, like Bradshaw and Farouk come out with her. No.
And then Bob Sapp gets in the ring, Tenshin hits him in the stomach and he goes down.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. I think it's hilarious that the only fight Bob Sapp's won recently is when the guy kicked him and hurt himself.
Well, no,
the guy like
the Osuna Rashi match. Don't forget the Osuna Rashi match that he had for Rizin. How could you forget that?
Oh, before that must have been before that. Then that's why I was laughing because he was on like some like crazy like 15 fight losing streak, and the only like win he had was some guy kicked him and hurt his own leg kicking Bob Sapp. I'm like,
did he also do something where he just like put his arm on some guy's throat and like I guess because Bob Sapp's 300 pounds, the guy tapped out because he had like a 300-pound guy. It was like for some Polish promotion or in Turkey or something.
Well, that makes sense because that's where he's doing all those fights. I mean, I remember the one where he was like literally eating McDonald's at the pre-fight press conference. But I forgot about that fight with the Egyptian sumo wrestler. That fight was nuts.
Listen, you can't deny that Bob Sapp actually puts on. He'll actually put on effort when he's in Japan. So
Well, he puts on. He's already said he fights as hard as you pay him.
fights is hard to pay. I like that. I like that. And Haitian says here, Tenshin's ex-girlfriends.
Yeah, just get all the rising round girls, the one that could do the weird arm thing, and get Kanasakura out.
Oh, I just saw this. How about this? Conspicuous by his absence. Cup Noodle Man.
The cup ramen, that'd be hilarious. The cup ramen guy.
It's like you have to kind of go crazy with that. I feel like you have to really go crazy. It can't just be a regular fighter, because then
Just get like a pro wrestler. You get like a hard gay to run out there, or you get some crazy character that's super famous.
I don't know if you watch DDT, Dan Chocodino.
I don't know, but anyone that's super famous.
Basically, his whole thing is that he's a gay wrestler, so all he does is try to molest and kiss his opponents, and he does all these I'm trying to think who I don't know, like who pro wrestler. I don't know. I mean, like, would any pro wrestler want to like be willing to do that at this point? I don't know.
I think so. For that kind of television audience, yeah.
Well, like realistically, the only pro wrestler I can think of that will like have like some sort of television presence that can maybe get. I mean, other than like some older wrestler, like I don't know, an older wrestler who's more famous. I guess Ricky Chosu. Hey, you know what? They have the TikTok thing. Ricky Chosu apparently is famous on TikTok. Apparently, that's what I heard. So
yeah, let's get him out then.
Yeah. Have 80-year-old Yuki Chosu come out on Walker to fight. Or I guess if realistically, if you had to ask me like a pro wrestler, probably the only pro wrestler I can think of is who's like legitimately famous enough that you could do X. I don't know, Togi Makabe from New Japan, just because he's got the shows on TV Asahi and all that stuff. That's another thing as well. I don't know, can they use somebody who works on another network?
Yeah, I don't think that they'd want to share them. I think it's gonna be like a actor or like an ex baseball player or retired athlete.
He did come out with the Mortal Kombat movie, maybe Tatanobu Asano, or whoever played
Takanobu Asano.
Takanobu Asano. Maybe Mortal Kombat was such a failure. He's like, I gotta do this for money now.
Channel his inner Ichi the Killer. And
yes,
go for it.
Gotta channel his. He comes out with the blonde hair. He's dressed up like Kakihara. He's got the Glasgow smile. Oh, that or Kana. It's gotta be either that or Kana at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're thinking more about who's X rather than if this fight's gonna be good. I don't think this fight's gonna like really be good or bad. I think
it's just all entertainment.
And that's fine. Listen, you gotta have entertainment sometimes. In MMA, it helps break up the monotony.
Yep. It'll bring eyes to the event, which will be good for everybody on the card.
Absolutely. But with that being said, Charles, I know it's getting late in Japan. I don't want to keep you up any more than I probably have already kept you up trying to figure out who X is. But I want to give you an opportunity to plug who you think is going to be, not plug, but plug your all your social media, all the shows you do, all the stuff you write about. You do a lot of stuff, so go all out.
My Twitter is at CJ's Report. I am the owner and writer for SOGO-KAKU.com, and I do a bi-weekly podcast with Shu Hirata, who's one of the more prominent managers in Japanese MMA. And so we kind of get into the weeds and get into some of the deep conversations. He knows a lot of behind the scenes stuff, so it's kind of fun. So if you're into Japanese MMA, just follow my stuff.
I can legitimately say that the one you do with Shu Hirata is fantastic, because it does open up a world that we don't get, that a lot of English fans don't get to really know about or hear a lot, particularly the whole thing of Ring Nakai and her kidnapper / husband, who's basically holding her hostage.
A good example is he talks about the old Japanese MMA events where the winning fighter would hold up that check, the big check at the end.
Yes.
And then you find out those guys never got paid. Like there was just literally a giant big check. There was no money.
Yeah. Or Shu, again, connected to the Japanese scene as well as a manager. So yeah, you get to hear a lot of stuff that like you don't that you won't hear anywhere else. So I highly recommend that. You also cover Deep Pancreas, Deep Jewel. So you get your live. I think you live tweeted Pancreas, and I was following you up until was that you? I think you were doing that, right?
I was tweeting. I wasn't doing. There was so many fights. There was like 20 fights.
Yeah,
I was just tweeting like the highlights of some of the bigger fights.
I conked out after Nakata's fight after he knocked out the Tamura, because I saw how many more fights were along, and I saw that there was post limbs. I'm like, I can't do this. I'll watch it tomorrow. By the way, if that was a good show. So if you do like Pancreas, watch that show. And if
Solid
you
show. Yeah, great.
and especially if you love lots of fights, if you love lots of
Yeah,
fights, if you think Ryzen doesn't put on enough fights, Pancreas is your
yeah,
gig. But again, yeah, and if people want to follow you, they can follow you at CGES Reports.
yeah. It's cjsreport.com.
CGS
I mean,
Report.
it's at CJ's Report on Twitter.
Yeah, and yeah, we hope that you enjoy the show live there. We hope that it all no emergency happens and the show gets canceled. We hope that it goes off swimmingly. And thank you for all you do for all the coverage for this sport,
Yeah.
especially on your side of the island. I'll say.
Thank you. You guys have been killing it. You guys have been interviewing everybody recently.
Oh God, it is. Do you know what? Listen, I love this, but sometimes when I have to get up at like at 5 a.m., I'm like, oh, I have to get up at 5 a.m. to talk to Yutaka Saito. I'm like, it's like, if you ever seen The Last Crusade,
Yeah,
and
I love that
the
movie.
when the knights
You chose wisely. You
uh
chose poorly.
yeah, I sometimes see that gif in my head of the knight saying to me, he chose poorly, because I'm like, what am I doing getting up at 5 a.m. to talk to a
Yeah.
fighter in Japan and having a translator? Like, is this productive at all, or am I just killing myself, taking years off my life doing
No, it's
this?
good. First off, we're gonna get along just fine if you keep making Last Crusade references. And no, I mean, the fighters are just starving for international attention.
Oh yeah.
So I think you're doing a great job giving it to them.
Oh yeah, then that's why I started this, because there was at the time there was it was bereft. It was like a desert.
Yeah.
You had only like Mike Skites and like a few people on Twitter, you and just like a few other Bruno Masami who were doing
Yeah.
this. And then I was just like, why isn't anybody covering this shit? This is good stuff and nobody's covering it. So
Yeah.
I wanted to bridge that gap. I was hoping, getting translators, using Google Translate initially when I couldn't find anything and couldn't get any translators. So I was just trying to figure out
That can be a
uh
dangerous game using Google Translate.
oh yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that like I try to see, like I try to put it through more than two translators to see what it's like. I put it through Google
Yeah.
Translate, and then like one other translate, and yeah, but like usually it's okay, and I can usually get what they're saying. But I know that Google Translate can really screw up some things.
I found that when you're converting your English to Japanese, I found the secret is to do the translation and then put it back into English and see how brutalized what you originally put in.
Oh yes, yeah.
But
Naho asked, will this be on archive? Oh yes, this will be on archive. As soon as it stops recording, you could rewatch it. And
perfect.
Chris is in the chat. And he says, I just hope this fight card will get a lot of buzz, and he'll be on the review show, because wasn't 100%. Yeah, no, Chris, we're sad that you weren't here. We hope that you'll be 100% for the review show. And yeah, hopefully, Charles, you can join us for the review show and cover this.
Of course, yeah.
Hopefully, this fantastic card.
I mean, I think I'll just close with this. This card is awesome. I mean, some people were slightly critical of the last card, but I mean, it was more of like a regional card. But this card, every fight on it, pretty much every fight on this card is an awesome fight. And I don't know why you wouldn't be. This card is a really good card. It's like the best Rising card of the year so far. And it's a great way to launch off the tournament.
Oh yeah, it's definitely the best Ryzen card of the year so far. And hopefully, it's great on paper, great in execution.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine all fights go to a 3-round boring decision. Everybody just wrestling each other.
No, don't say that.
Baynola gets out grapples Dominator, somehow out wrestles him, and yeah.
Don't even put that out there. Don't even put these options out there in the universe.
Ozaki knocks out Tenshin in the first round. Just like imagine like the polar opposite of like everything that Rizin wants to happen, and then it doesn't.
Can you imagine if that happened? If someone like didn't watch the event, they just woke up and read the results, they would be like, "What the hell happened? Like, what year is this?
Joke? Is this a joke?
It's a fake website. The Onion is the Onion writing articles about Rising now.
Yeah, well, remember when the Kyoji and Kai when the Kyoji got knocked out? I know that some people there were some people who obviously didn't stay up to watch it. And like I know that some people that I talked to, like I had to do a double take. Like I thought it was a misprint that they wrote Kai beat Kyoji. If I didn't see the picture, I wouldn't have believed it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a huge upset. I mean, that's just good though. It vitalizes the whole market, gets everyone into it.
Absolutely. Listen, and I'm on the Sheehan train. I think that Sheehan's going to go far in this tournament. So I'm hoping that he makes it to the finals. That's something I want to see. Does he win? Probably not, but like if he goes to the finals, like it's not
That'd
what
be
Ryzen
nuts.
wants, but it's what I want, and that's the I like when little things, weird things like that happen in MMA, where the people who you don't want, who shouldn't be winning, win. It makes things more
So
interesting.
it's
Uh
like me with Shuta Watanabe, where Shuta Watanabe wins. I'll like low key be happy.
oh yeah, listen, but he is a high level fighter. Listen, if Kai fucks up somehow, or
Yeah.
hey, listen, Kosaka has a win over Fedor technically. Listen, shit can
Yeah.
happen. Shit can happen. But
I'm
again,
just
sorry, go ahead.
that's gonna be hilarious if he's like the next like promotional video is just like Shuta Watanabe being like, hey, my name's Shuta, and he's like eating an ice cream cone as he talks, and his girlfriend's just sitting next to him because he's like such a soft spoken guy. You'd never in a million years think they chokes
It,
people out for a living.
would you say he's soft spoken or awkward,
I mean,
or maybe a little bit
he's
both?
got he's almost got like a feminine voice. He has like a very high
Yes,
pitched, squeaky
yes,
voice.
yeah. I think that in a way is just more like dorky awkward. I don't mean like dorky like oh like he's a dork. He's like he's got the glasses. He's like going. I think he's just kind of like he's got kind of like that. He's got like
What?
that '80s high school kid type thing. If anybody's ever watched like '80s high school movies, like
Mm-hmm.
he's got kind of like like if there was a club for the nerds or for like the smart kids, I feel like Naoki would be in that.
Yeah, I feel like so I feel like he just doesn't care. Because I
Yeah.
remember I saw a video of like him and his sister when they were staying in New York, and they're like, "What's your next Rising walkout song gonna be?" And he just like didn't care. He was like telling Mizuki, he's like, "Pick
It's
one for me." Like I
it's
don't really
so
care. Like
those
he
two are
doesn't give
like
a shit.
those two are like polar opposites. She's much more energetic. She's much more talkative. I've interviewed her before. She
Mm-hmm.
definitely has more to say. And like, yeah, the two are like so opposite.
Well, she also has way more experience though dealing with like media,
Yeah.
and I think foreign media is very different than like local Japanese media.
Her English is also better. Her English is also better. I at least I perceive. Unless anyway, it does a thing where like I know some English, but I'm not confident enough, so I won't speak it. Whereas Mizuki's kind of like, I'll try my English.
Well,
That's
her
always the
English has
impression.
gotten a lot better because her English wasn't getting better because she was living with Shu and her brother, so they're just speaking Japanese all the time. And now she's living in Las Vegas, so she like lives at Arlene Sterling's house, and so she has to speak English. So her English is actually getting better now.
Yeah, yeah. But like like the few times I talked to anyway, like he knows the basic. Hello,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, Charles, I hope you enjoyed the show. We thank
Me
you for
too.
being on the show, and yeah, hopefully this review show we'll get you on for the review show, and we could talk about Shuto Watanabe winning.
We'll talk about him, and after Osaka, we can talk about Xian.
Oh yes, Shuto Watanabe versus Xian in the finals. I think if
I
that
think
happens,
Sakakibara would retire. I think he'd
yeah,
just
he talked
sell
about.
Ryzen.
He just talked about retirement recently, and if that
Yeah,
happens, he'll be like, not 10 years
not
from
waiting
now,
till 60. Not
not
waiting
waiting
till
till 60,
60.
waiting, yeah,
Retiring now.
retiring right now. Yeah, he takes off his tie, he puts it on the desk,
Yeah.
during a press conference. Mayweather
That'd be,
buys Ryzen and turns it into that. I wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if Mayweather did that if he did buy Ryzen, or he
I think
sells.
he's. I mean,
Or sorry, go ahead.
I think he's pretty involved. Was he was going to do that? What were they calling that event?
Oh yeah, the big
For some reason, like mega event. The
mega,
mega.
yeah,
Yeah.
the mega event, the 2-day mega event. It was supposed to be, I think, right?
Yeah. But then he signed some like exhibition fights. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah,
All
again,
right. So I will gladly help talk to you on the reviews thing. And thanks for having me on to talk about Ryzen. I love talking about it.
no problem. And thank you for all you do and continue doing the great work, sir.
You too.